Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
Hey, welcome everyone. I am doing something which they always tell you never to do. Don't cross streams, right? It's always a bad thing to cross streams. Nothing ever good comes out of it. But we're going to try to break that today because I am crossing streams with the lovely, beautiful, talented, exceptionally brilliant Brittany Simon. People remember her. She's been on the NonSequitur Show many times. She debated, who was that guy? Sargon of Akkad, I believe his name was, right? Sargon?
Correct.
Yeah. And that's actually how I got to know her. I was like, who is this chick? And she's making sense. Stop this. I don't like this. This is bad. I'm serious.
You're so
like,
sweet.
Yeah, I was like, so my audience didn't hear your initial things to what you said to your audience about you kind of feeling a little off today and you need some ego stroking, which you know I'm good at. I'm good at that. So I decided to give you a little ego stroking.
That's the point of being a YouTuber. That's a perk of being a YouTuber.
Is that the only reason why we stream? It's just ego, supposedly? I mean, that's what I've been told, right? So
absolutely. Compliment me, please, because I feel like my allergies have attacked my face. I feel like I look like a zombie. So
see, my allergies don't do that. My allergies make
really?
me like, yeah, my allergies make me just really stuffy. I don't get any like, physical things as far as like, like facey stuff. But you look, I mean, you don't look like you have any allergies. You just look like you're tired.
Oh, that's
maybe.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, that's what it feels like. You should have seen me yesterday. I was just drowning and like I was up all night, just like it was a mess. But hey, I'm here now. I'm excited to be here. It's going to be a good combo.
You are here today. Yes, we've been planning this for a while. It should be pretty interesting because I wanted to hear more from your side of the fence. So let me give you guys a brief overview of why we decided to do this. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, on my channel, the NonSequitur Show, for your audience, if you haven't subscribed, come check it out. It's live streaming, and plus I'll be showing things on my channel, so you might want to go over there right now while we have a little reprieve before we get started. But long time ago, had a discussion on trans sports, transgender people in sports and things of that nature. And I had somebody on the show that with pronouns came up. And their name, I don't know what they go by. Okay, nowadays, the funny thing is you never know, right? But I kept referring to they or them or her or she or he. I don't know what they even go by anymore. That's some of the issues. But I figure, okay, I'll just call them EJ, right? That was the name, right? The name.
Mm-hmm.
And what a pronoun does, a pronoun supposed to represent a proper name, right? It's to refer back from an independent clause to a dependent clause. A dependent clause to an independent clause of what you're referring to, right? So if my name's Steve, it would say Steve went to the store and he got soda or something, right? These are linguistic things. And so because I was like trying to explain, look, I am happy to call a person by which they are gendered, obviously. If you are presenting as female or you are trans, he, she, absolutely, right? I mean, that's just, that's just, common courtesy. But my argument was, Brittany, and I wanted to get your fan base's opinion on it. When you start using things like these alternative, neutral, non-binary things and things of that nature, where you're prescribing usages like z, zim, zim, them, my argument is this: those have not really taken hold in the English language. Whether they do or not, that means to be determined, right? I'm a descriptivist, and so language is fluid. And that's fine. But my argument is you have to do that at the grassroots level. You have to start that off in your own little communities, and then as they take hold, they become greater and greater. You cannot regulate it. You cannot force somebody to use those types of non-standard terminologies, because then you are telling persons how to speak, how to do a language. You are prescribing things. And that was kind of generally my argument, especially with like they and them, which they use singularly rather than third person, which is well established, but it is confusing, right? Mm-hmm. Usually you say like somebody called for you and they didn't leave their name, right? So it's ambiguous of their gender.
Right.
But if I say Brittany called and they wanted this, then you kind of go, well, who is Brittany with whom? You know, Brittany, who's they? Right. And so it's a little bit of ambiguity there. So my argument has always been, you know, pronouns are just references, but this need to have people force their pronouns on people, it always backfire. You cannot legislate, you cannot regulate language like that. And I think it's having a backfire effect. And I think it's actually hurting the gay, lesbian, trans community, because they are looking like they're being authoritarian rather than all-inclusive.
Yeah. Well, it's not as efficient as I think they perceive it to be. So I think in their bubbles, they probably assume that this is the best route for moving society forward. But I think that they forget that forcing people doesn't work. It's just like when you tell people, oh, you're depressed, get over it. It's like it doesn't work that way. Same with pronouns. Oh, get used to it. It's really easy. Is it easy to change all of society and how we function? I think it happens over time. And so I think we're getting better at it. I know you and I think as just general examples, like I've learned to use they, them in conversation, but I fuck up too. Can I cuss on your live stream?
Fuck
I don't know if I can cuss it. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah. No, look, half my shit gets demonetized before I even start. Okay.
Me too. Same. I gave up trying. Okay. So I always feel like I'm so open to pronoun people, just like I call priests father. I'm so open to it to make a cohesive community effort. But I just think that they're not even aware of how much they're asking of people. I think it's a big deal when we ask people to, hey, take the thing you've known your whole life and change it up. I try to have compassion, which means to suffer with. So I can imagine how weird it was for me at first. And that was many years ago in Seattle. And we're many years. The first non-binary person I ever met was when I was like 21, and I'm 33 this month or next month. So it's like, okay, I've known non-binary gender fluid people for over a decade now. And it is a very difficult thing to get used to. It's not easy.
Yeah, and I don't know of any case in the history of humanity where people have prescribed language where it's taken. Things are usually done organically, right? Words come into existence because they are used, right? For example, and before I even was talking to you, I was in your Discord talking to a small group of your patrons of people like that and members. And by the way, all great, cool people, very very articulate, very intelligent. I was like, damn, she got some cool people in here, but. One of the things I had noted to them was that the word Google is only 23 years old, right? Prior to 23 years ago or something, the word Google did not exist. I mean, there was Google for mathematics, right. but to Google something, I should say the usage of the word Google, to Google something as a verb did not exist, right? It was only used in math, Amazing. Right? And so that became normative, right? Now it's like if you want to look something up, it's just synonymous with, hey, go Google something.
Yeah,
right.
Even if you don't use Google.
You can use Yahoo, still Googling, right? It's as much has taken it over, just like Band-Aid. Band-Aid is a name brand, right?
Exactly, brand, right. I totally do that. I think about that every time I use words. I'm like, where did I get this word from? Where did I even get this word from? Like, how is it? I love that about language, though. And I do. I use, like, young people words sometimes. Like, my sister-in-law said it. She goes, why are you using that word? I'm like, damn it, the internet. And I was like, it's from the internet. And then I realized it really is becoming a part of my vocabulary. And I don't know. I love it in some ways. And then in other ways, I do get exhausted. So from a personal perspective, I'm a little exhausted at the forcing of. From another way of looking at it, I'm also really excited that we're using new language and we're creating new ways to communicate. So it's a catch-22.
Yeah, if it catches on, right? But here's the thing. I find it linguistically difficult. People do know that I grew up with a speech impediment, not trying to use that as an excuse, but trying to say that it took years for me to able to enunciate certain words. I had to go through massive amount of years of therapy because I could not say certain things with S's and R's very well. I would say wabbit instead of rabbit. And I still fall back on that a lot. I still find myself doing it all the time with R's and S's especially. And I'll catch myself. My audience may not catch it because they're, not hyper aware of it as I am. But, I'm always constantly trying to in my head, process what I'm saying for that very reason, because of that speech impediment. And so to now concentrate on, okay, they, them, as opposed to, like I said, using their real name. If you wanted to be known as they, them, I just generally would say Brittany instead. Now, which could be cumbersome.
Right.
But it's not like it's grammatically incorrect. Brittany went to the store, and then Brittany decided to go get some, popcorn or something, right?
Have you received backlash for that? Because I feel like that works too. I use people's names in lieu of their pronouns if I don't know their pronouns, or if I don't want to ask, or maybe if they don't want to answer.
I actually, it's kind of funny because there was as you know, I'm well ingratiated, kind of in good, bad, or indifferent with the atheist community, right? I actually, matter of fact, just yesterday interviewed for a non-monetary position with basically what they call what is it called when you advisory board for an atheist organization. That wanted to do a show with me based on philosophy and get me to give some insights on some of the things that they're doing when it comes to street epistemology. And, I was thrilled. I was like, yeah, of course. I've been promoting them for a while. And by the way, I'm not an atheist, right? I'm not a theist either. But and so I had somebody that was a longstanding member of the atheist community and was. Should I name them? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It's up to you.
It doesn't matter. Named Jenna Belk, who I always got along with, which I was kind of thought was kind of odd, but she had denounced one of the more prevalent people in the atheist community by the name Matt Dillahunty, who I've had some issues with personally, and on a personal level. But I was like, okay, so I did an episode on Jenna. And I said, and I asked work with me here because I'm confused. I asked in the Facebook, I said, what pronouns do you prefer? Because I thought that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what you're always told? If you're not sure, ask what pronouns, right?
Yeah.
So I did, and the response, instead of saying, well, I go by this, this, and this, which was expected, was, oh, you're just too lazy to go look at my bio? First of all, I'm not aware that was, I know people put them in their bios, but, I wasn't even thinking, do I go check this person's bio or something? It's just like, no, can you just tell me? I'm talking to you right now. Just, what are your pronouns? That I thought to myself, this is to me somebody who's weaponizing these types of things. Right? I mean,
they also have bad manners, right? Isn't that bad manners? I
would think so. I mean, when you go out of your way to tell people, look, if you're not sure, ask for pronouns, which I would completely respect. I completely think you should never misgender somebody. It is a form of aggression. It is a form of trying to demean them. I get that because look, if I'm a cisgender heterosexual white male, I'm the minority, right?
Yeah.
And so, wait,
did you say you're the minority?
I'm a minority. Cisgender heterosexual white male nowadays. Yes, I'm a minority.
Skirt, I want to come over there and pull you by your weave. What are you talking about, minority?
It sure seems to be the case, at least in my circles. I want
to come over there right now. Okay.
Don't you do that for your sessions? Yeah, I thought you got paid to do those sessions on Saturday or something.
The lives, the Discord ones where I pity white men. Wait, which ones?
I don't know. You do all kinds of stuff.
I do all kinds of things.
Don't kink shame me.
I'm sorry. You're right. Skirt. I'll pull it back. Okay, wait. I'm so confused. So they reacted instead of just being like, "Oh, no problem. Here are my pronouns." It was very much like, "You should have researched me." Like very like, "I'm so special."
I've known this person forever. I always refer to Jen as she until recently, right? Because I guess now she comes out as by non-binary or trans. I don't know, one or the other, right? But that wasn't the point.
People think they're the same.
Yeah, they're not. But I have had backlash when, I like math a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I tried to explain one person one time, not to do too much of a tangent, but so your audience can be aware that I'm very, very logically consistent on a bimodal distribution, because gender can be looked at different ways. One of the ways it can be looked at is called a bimodal distribution. Now, I think it has advantages and disadvantages because gender doesn't seem to be very functional as far as like an actual graph of a function. It seems to be a lot more scattered plot, which is fine. But let's say you use a bimodal distribution. That means that somewhere on that area, you're either toward the mode of female or toward the mode of male, or in the middle, which would be non-binary, where you may go to a little bit one side or the other, right? You're the agnostic version of male.
Right.
So you have to be like 50% one, 50% the other, 90-10, 70-30. There's something like that. You could be 100% or you can be 0, but you cannot be 100% of both. You cannot exist on both nodes. And I've had people tell me I'm 100% female and 100% male. I'm like, but that doesn't work on a bimodal distribution. And they're like, oh, you're just being transphobic. And I'm like, no, this is math.
I mean, can I even take it a step further and just say it's all metaphysical and everything is spiritual and it's like a religious experience and gender is like personal, and so you can't even put it on paper?
Yeah, and I got no issue with that. I mean, it is something metaphysical as far as like what you believe and what you know and things of that nature, which is epistemology, which is a form of metaphysics, right? And I told you, look, if I all of a sudden like became you, if I had my conscious, my qualia, my sensory, but I had your body, right?
Right.
I would not stop being a man. I mean, I would still feel like a man. I would not look physically like a man, obviously, because you look like a woman. But you know, I would be treated. I'm trying to skirt, you know, around that. I don't want people
I got you. I got you. But you're right. Yeah. No, ultimately, you'd be a man in a woman's body, and I'd be a woman in a man's body if we switched bodies. But that's what I'm. Well, for me, okay, look, I'm a cis person, so like my gender and my sex are the same thing. But at the same time, because I play in like meditation and like energy and woo-woo circles, I know that we play sort of with the energy of masculine and feminine, which I think is where gender derives from. It's that feeling of different from the physical entity of your sex. And I think that's fair, but I don't think it's a universal experience, right? So when I think about my gender and sex, I think of them as one thing, but my trans friends think of them as two things, which is fair because for them it is different. But for a cis person, I'm not sure it could ever be different.
Okay, that's a good question. I do think they are different. We use the terms differently. And when I think about language is when we say a word, right? See, it's in my linguistic when I don't pronounce something correctly. I note these things. When we use a word, we are connoting something to somebody. We're wanting them to understand what we're trying to explain, right? So words have usages, and so when we use the word sex, right? Sex generally refers to a biological condition, and unfortunately, because humans are a dimorphic species, biologically speaking, there's only 2 biological sexes. There's nobody in the world that's ever disagreed with that of any caliber. I mean, that's just a standard thing in biology, bar none. There's 2 biological dimorphic gametic sexes. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't some abnormalities, right? These are things like Klinefelter syndrome and Turner syndrome and SRY gene. But generally, but they still break down to one of 2 sexes. Now, gender, however, is more along the lines, I do think, is more social construct, right? I mean, how we perceive other people, what we think. Now, you are a cisgender female, but you are, as far as like sexuality, very fluid, right?
I would say so, depending on how we define sexuality, but like that. See, that's my problem is every circle I go into, every single bubble I go into, they all define these things so differently. So there's not even an objective way to explain it. Even like my homosexuality, like my bisexualityness, they're like, but are you bisexual or biromantic? I'm like, oh, okay, there's like new versions of how to be gay.
Yeah, and I don't know if it needs to be that myopic. I mean, if you're romantically involved with somebody, you know, whether you have sex or not, to me is kind of irrelevant. It's the attraction, right? I mean, it's you wanting to be with them, whether you're cuddling, whether you're holding hands, whether you're finding affection with them. Those are feelings, right? Sex is an action. To have sex, that's an action, right? You can have sex and be completely emotionless. I know, I've dated some people like that. True. Right? I'm sure of you, right?
Been there, done that.
Not very often, but sex and emotions are completely different things, and so.
Yes.
I have no problem with differentiating between sex and gender, especially when people are born, you know, with the personage of somebody that is contrary to what their physiology is. And I completely believe that. I absolutely believe that. I mean, how hard it would be for me to think, I could imagine being in a female body. And if that was the case, you know, I would be tripping if people, were treating me like a woman, because like, no, I'm a dude, you know, I just happen to have boobs, you know, and female genitalia. But when it came to these pronouns, it always had been stuff like that. Don't misgender he, she. But what happened in the last couple of decades, as you've seen, people have weaponized this stuff. People have said, have my pronouns, or you're going to suffer consequences of not. As a matter of fact, I had sent you an article of that teacher. As a matter of fact, I'll show it to my audience if you guys like. In your audience, if they're watching my feed, that's not it. Here we go. That was my walkthrough for a game I was playing. Sorry about that. I cheat. I'm sorry. I cheat. People find out I'm a cheater.
Link Steve's show, guys. By the way, I have linked Steve's show in the chat. Please go to his page. It's okay if you're not watching on my stream, but you should go check out his at least like his stream and comment over there. But I did, Steve, look at those articles you sent me, and I screenshot. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for on my phone. I screenshot
and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe, people.
Yeah, and subscribe to Steve. Sorry, I'm such a bad YouTuber.
You are. Yeah. No, you and I are the same boat. we suck at self-promotion.
Yeah, I'm really bad at it.
Yeah, so what I sent you was this university was ordered to pay $400,000 a professor because the professor refused to use their preferred pronouns. And there's obviously there was a lot to this, right? They weren't just trying to misgender somebody. I think if they're not mistaken, this person was actually using their name, just like I did. That's why it was like, wait a minute, that's not misgendering, right? If I want to call you by your first name, oh no, I know what it was. It was sir. They used the word sir. That's what it was. Now let me ask you, Brittany. As you know, I was military. The sir is actually non-gender specific. Women in the military, a woman officer can be called sir or ma'am. Either one is completely fine. Now, you don't want to call a male officer ma'am, so there's they have the best of both worlds. But a female officer, you either call them sir or ma'am, either one of them. Those are perfectly acceptable. And so referring to people as sir is non-gender specific. And that's what I think his point was being. That you shouldn't take offense if somebody calls you sir. It's like, oh, well, I'm a man, but in the military, it's either. And so
this is so funny. Okay, not to make it super BDSM, but let me tell you BDSM because it takes from a lot of the military, old BDSM guard. Same thing. You can call women and men both sir, but you don't call men ma'am. But then that's super weird too, because then it's kind of the feminist narrative would be, the third wave feminist narrative would be, oh, that's because like women aren't as valuable and men are. And so men can be gender neutral, sir can be gender neutral and ma'am can't. And so it's kind of like that whole argument. But I would assume, so if as a straight, as a cis woman, God forbid I was straight, but like as a cis woman, if people called me sir as a form of respect, I would probably take it with like, ooh, I'm like a boy in like a good way. But then I do get misgendered sometimes. And that's always funny to me because I'm like, damn, do I look that much like a dude sometimes? So that's always awkward too. And so I think that I can understand the respect perspective, but as a cis woman, I wonder if I would take it more as a respectful thing than a trans person. Like I'm sure as a trans person, it could trigger something within them. But then, okay, because I want to get to the point where trans people are like cis people. So meaning that they will feel the same amount of respect or slash, but it's also a social game, right? Because that guy at that university, he knew what he was doing. He doesn't believe in trans people. He's a Christian. He stood up for his Christian religion. Yeah. So he is also trying to skirt around the rules to benefit him. Yeah. So like I think adult to adult, we know that he's still not valuing the trans experience, which I think trans people should start being okay with. Meaning we're not arguing that because I'm super pro-trans, obviously.
Yeah. And I likewise,
years. Aggressively pro-trans. I've dated trans people. I love trans. Like, there's no issue with being trans, literally. Like, I have no issue with it. We are going to always come against people who don't see our reality or share our reality. And if you're dealing with religious people, we have to learn to cohabitate. So in the same way that the religious person might be like connivingly going around the rules so they don't have to like forego their religion, the trans person should learn, I believe, to coexist with the religious person and all make it work together. But ultimately, like adult to adult, it's adulthood, not like high school with money. So I feel like we are playing pity games and there is a lot of snarky passive aggressive behavior. And I just don't, I think that's just humans. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think we're both looking for ideal worlds where like the Christians get to have no trans people and the trans people get to have people who pronoun them perfectly. And I don't know what world this is.
Yeah,
being too impatient.
No, I happen to agree with you on that, and that it's good advice because look, you're never going to change the minds of everybody, and when you weaponize something like that, all you do is suffer what's called the entrenchment effect or backlash, right? And so you when you start pointing out these types of things. Because this was pointed out, this was made an issue by this person, and because of that, look, the professor not only got credibility out of it, and made notoriety for themselves, but got a $400,000 payout, right? So what did it accomplish? I agree with you, and absolutely, trans people suffer these things more. If somebody misgenders me, who gives a shit? If you call me a female, I'm not going to care. I'd be like, okay, I literally could not care less. But for a trans person, yes, it could be a completely different thing, right? It would be like very upsetting, and I understand that, right? But when you make it an issue, all you're doing is playing into the game of what that person wants you to do. I know it's hard to turn the other cheek sometimes, and I'm not saying you shouldn't stand your ground and let people know, but
pick your battles.
Pick your battles. If people are not going to conform to your what you asking them, accept it, deal with it, and then let society deal with the societal effects if there's are any. Right, but if you were to force me to use things like Z-Zim, it's not going to happen. I don't use those terms. It makes no sense to me. But if you want to use it in your community, by all means. But you cannot force somebody to do that, right?
Right. I've only met a couple of Zers, but like, what's funny about them And I've had this happen before where people will not pronoun them. And here's the thing, I don't mind pronouning or religiousizing or using language that works within your cultural bubble, as long as you're not expecting me then to turn around and be for it or say that I understand it, because I don't understand Caesar. I'm going to be real. I've read about it. I still don't get it. I don't care to get it. To be honest, I don't give a fuck. But that's because it doesn't matter to me. It's not going to matter to me. If you are Caesar, I literally don't care. In the same way I don't care what your religious view is, but you can't come to me. I don't like people who push objective narratives down my throat, because I've had people do that in different ways, from flat earthers to other people, and I'm just so over it. Please, I'm exhausted by you all.
Yeah, no, that's what it is, though. They are pushing.
We have to learn to cohabitate.
They're pushing. And again, if I don't care if those pronouns become normative, if they become part of society. They've been around for a long time, actually. They've been around for a while in different usages, but they're only really used in small groups, right? I mean, in people's communities. But most people that have ZM, they also go oh, but you can call me this, or you call me that. They have alternatives, right? That they're trying to say, look, we understand that you're not going to be comfortable using certain terms because it's whatever. Here's an alternative. That's great. Provide alternative things like that, right? But when they force you, say, look, you have to kind of use this thing, or you're going to be kicked out of school, or you lose your professorship, you whatever. Now you've crossed the line into weaponizing these things, and that's what I spoke out against before on the Non-Sequitur Show when we were talking about these things. And yes, I got vilified for it by a small group of people. But these are the same group of people that are going after some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. One of them, I don't know if you knew a YouTuber named Rachel Oates.
Yeah, I know Rachel.
You know Rachel? Okay, she's sweet, right? She's a nice. When I had
always seemed really genuine to me.
I think she's very genuine. I used to be a mod for her channel. She started about the same time NonSequitur Show came around, and I had her on. And she's just skyrocketed. But they went after her as being transphobic, and I'm like, are you out of your freaking mind? This is a person who's an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, and you're trying to vilify them. And label these types of terms like transphobic because it doesn't fit your exact agenda. That's harming the community. I was mortified by that. I could are you out of your mind? And there's people on YouTube that literally do that. They've done it to many people, including myself. And it's like, what? My co-host was gay. My producer was gay. I'm like, I'm not trying to pull I have a gay friend, but it's just obviously we were allies. The whole show was based upon mostly non-belief and LGBTQ because of Kyle. And I'm like, good.
It was really gay. Your show was really gay.
It was really gay. Yeah, it was flamboyant. It was over the top. He would always talk about his dating. And I was fine with that. I got a little bit much after he tried to kick me off and steal the show, and it all became about him and his sex life. But whatever, not great.
Okay, wait. Can I just say my mom says this to me sometimes. Well, she'll say, Brittany, I care more about women than you do. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I fight more for women's rights as a conservative Catholic woman than any of the feminists. I go, okay. And she goes, I care about women because I'm anti-abortion. I go, okay. It sounds like that way when trans people talk. You're transphobic and I care more about trans people because I'm fighting for Caesar. I'm like, okay. I don't care. Because after a while, it sounds like...
How are you pro-women if you're anti-abortion? Wouldn't that be contradiction?
Okay, but I see it. I see it from their perspective, right? Because I do... So spiritually, emotionally, I think abortion is unethical. But legally, you're right to... Should you do it? Yes. If you want to have an abortion, kill that baby. I don't care. But from a spiritual perspective, I think anytime we're destroying our bodies and destroying our life, we're taking a spiritual knockoff. So I can understand from a spiritual perspective coming to a place where you're maybe we shouldn't be terminating pregnancies, but then from a realistic life happens way, we should be terminating our pregnancies. So there's efficiency in both methods, but I can see if you have a spiritual lens of seeing existence only, that anything that's my mom's anti-drugs, she's anti-consuming things that are bad for you, she doesn't drink, she doesn't cuss, she doesn't eat fast food, she's very a part of that, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of one of those things where I can see from their perspective why that's the answer. So when I look at trans people or anyone and they say, I want the world to look this way, and I can't seem to get people to do it, a part of me is then you can't do it. You have to decide, do you believe in free will? A person's right to bodily autonomy? Do they have the right to their own agency? If they do, how can we force people to use pronouns or force people to dress a certain way? There was this Catholic college my parents tried to send me to when I was young, and I went for one of those homeschool weekends. They let you host students, and they only refer to people as Mr. and Miss last name. So and then women had to wear skirts and men had to wear pants, and they had to look nice for class. I was like, I'm not going here. And my mom's like, why? I was like, because I don't want to have to dress in a skirt as a woman. And I don't like the idea of them like calling me Miss blah, blah, blah. I'm like, ew, like we're in college. Like this feels weird. So I didn't go to that college. It feels that way when I think about other, like, why do I have this desire to just remove myself while other people have this desire to dominate a space? Why do you think that is? Like, do you ever think about that? Like, instead of just going to a college that makes sense to you, why do you think people go to colleges in which they now have to change the way they operate in order to go there?
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I do not agree with certain formalities, right? First of all, I don't like being called Mr. McRae when I'm out. You know, I always tell people, no, just call me Steve, right? Wherever I'm at, call me Steve. It's not like it offends me, right? It's not offensive. I mean, but they you know, generally people are polite, and I understand that that's like the business. Right. You call people by your last name, especially in business. I'm all for that. However, once you give somebody permission, you know, let them know, no, you don't be so formal, call me by Steve. You know, as people say, my dad was Mr. McRae, right? So a lot of people don't, right? A lot of people don't like being called their last name when they're out in you know, doing business type stuff because of that very reason, right? And so that's a matter of respect. You call them by your first name. Like I went for a job interview the other day, which I got. Go figure. Nice. Ego. I knew I had it. It was a great interview, but you know, they're like my actual legal name is Steven. But only Mom and Kano, my moderator roommate, called me that. Nobody else calls me Steven. Not that it offends me.
I never even thought of you as a Steven. I never even thought of you as a Steven.
It wouldn't offend me. It doesn't bother me. But it's like, no, just call me Steve, right? And so these are just general things that you get used to. I wouldn't want to go to school where I'm forced to use, you know, certain terminology, certain clothing. That it prevents expression. And as far as the abortion thing, I'm going to ask you. I am pro-choice, but I do agree with you as far as like for myself. I couldn't imagine if I was a woman having an abortion for me. When I had my daughter, it wasn't even an option, right? But that doesn't. That's just, you know, our individual, you know, decisions we make, right? But I do have a problem with like third trimester abortions. Anything past a certain amount of time, I do find to be unethical.
Yeah, you should do it when it's young. You should do it when it's like a tadpole.
Yeah. If it's a clump of a blast of, you know, just a zygote or whatever, I couldn't care less, right? I just absolutely couldn't care less. I don't think there's any kind of essence of a person in there waiting to be happening from some kind of Catholic viewpoint. I don't believe that at all. And so, yeah, if you want to do the morning after pill, or if it's, you know, it doesn't feel any pain. But my personal belief is once it starts feeling pain, I have a problem with this, right? And as you said, it's legal. Don't get me wrong. Right, but that's just my position. But there are people that are so pro-choice. They'll say, "Hey, you can murder that baby until the umbilical cord's cut." I'm like,
totally. Oh yeah.
And I'm like, that doesn't make much sense. And they treat it like it's a quote parasite or something. I'm like, that's not the definition of parasite, but it doesn't matter.
When people use that language, it just feels like a defense mechanism to me, like they're in trauma or something, and so they don't want to accept that they're. I think it's a just like a disconnect in the brain where we don't examine like how we come about. Like we're human beings, we have to come about some way. Like I know this from like my brother having a farm. People mourn when their goats die in the womb, and I'm like, so we know it's a life. I don't know why we're pretending that it's not. And that's the problem. Is I'm probably too much of a. I try to be as much of a realist as I can, but that does get in the way of sort of working within these like belief systems. Because if you have to do that, then you have to face a lot of the issues within these belief systems, from pronouns to pro-lifeness to queerness. Like every one of our communities has problems. Guys, on TikTok, there's this TikTok trend that says, "Is there any community without drama? Even the crochet community." Crochet community got drama, people. The knitting community got drama.
Is it like, should you do a cross stitch or a half, you know?
Yeah, that's really the drama. But like there's always gossip and cheating and lying, and that's just how humans be. So I think sometimes even trans communities, as progressive as they think they are, forget that they're human. And so they fall victim to their own. Like, look, we grew up in a time when atheism was a scandal. I wasn't even allowed. I was the first kid to stop going to church in my family. It was a big deal. Like people don't understand when you come from an environment in the 90s and 2000s like I did, where atheism and Bill Maher and Michael Moore and all these people were a big deal. And now you guys just think it's so easy to be an atheist, so easy to be trans. And I'm like, you weren't there. You didn't even understand. I was even there for the beginning of the trans movement, but like to think about what they've gone through to where we are now, where people are openly like running for office as trans people. I'm like, hello, this is the new age. So part of me wants people to be humble and be grateful for the progress we've made while still demanding more progress. But think about what you're asking for.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And it's great that the progress has been made. And there's the fact that people can be open and running for office. That's why when I see people weaponizing this stuff, I just have this knee-jerk reaction to try to explain to them, look, you're having a detrimental effect. I'm like you. I lived through this third wave feminism kind of stuff, right? Once second wave feminism came around and women were given the right to vote and there was egalitarianship and everything like that, everyone was on board with that. I mean, anybody that was, wasn't a piece of shit, obviously. I mean, obviously you had, the patriarch that does exist. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But you did have the old standard of the guy who was a breadwinner. He was the head of the household. Women were subservient to them. It was, hey, I'm home. Take off my shoes. Make me a sandwich, and get on your knees, kind of stuff. Right? That's the way it was for the.
I mean, I'm kind of into that consensually.
Yeah, hey, kink away, right? But this was this was an actual thing, a dynamic that existed in the home, in the social structure, which only recently has been majorly changed to accept that there's all these different other ways you can have a functional family, right? I mean, back in the day, 2 fathers, 2 mothers, these were all things that were actually being discussed as if they were a problem. Now I'm like, who gives a shit? Yeah, nobody cares,
so
right?
Exciting.
It's become
Don't you love it though?
Yeah.
It's so nice. Like just as I just remember like Ellen getting fired and Rosie getting fired and people not being able to be gay and my mom being like, oh, don't go on the internet. They're talking about gay stuff. And then I'm just sitting here as like, it's so different now. And it's so good. It makes me want to cry. It is so good now. Like, and obviously there are ways that it always could be better, but that's the problem is like, there are always going to be problems. So I do think like humility is completely missing from this conversation where people have no fucking clue of how hard people had to work to get here. You know what I mean? Like, I love that they're talking about they, them pronouns because I'm like, the biggest issue we have right now is they, them pronouns.
Because, exactly. That's the biggest concern, right?
Yeah, we are in a good place. And if they don't understand that, then they almost don't even deserve, like, I'm like, I don't even want to talk to them. I'm like, you're too young to even, like, it's exhausting.
But don't you think because, again, I'm not going to try to crap on millennials because, again, I don't like generalizations, but I have seen it in more of the younger people that they didn't do any of the work to get where they're at. And they just seem so entitled and to think that, okay, because all this work has already been done, because there have been so many steps done for the LGBTQ plus communities, that all of a sudden they can now tell people what to do. They can regulate, they can prescribe, they can feel like they have some kind of power that they weren't deserving of. I think
you should go deeper, though. I think you should go deeper. I think we were told, because I'm an older millennial, I was told when I was younger, you need to save the world. You need to be Martin Luther King. You need to change the world. And so I grew up with this like sense of duty. I had to go to therapy for this, where I was like, I'm supposed to save the world. And my therapist is like, who told you that? My therapist was older. And I was like, everybody. In schools, we watch documentaries about like racial segregation. And we were told, so when I talk to millennials, like a lot of the work I do, my one-on-one calls, my consultation calls, half the calls are just, Brittany, I'm supposed to save the world. And I'm like, I know, I thought that too. Smoke a joint, baby. It was a lie.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's a huge lie. And by the way, it wasn't just millennials who were told that. Other people have been as well.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, not so much not so much Gen X. I mean, that wasn't the big push in the Gen X.
Gen Z and Gen Millennial, I think, had it the hardest, where we were told like you should mean something. You should be rich by 22, a millionaire, and you should do something that means something. And it's like, what does that mean? I felt such pressure, and now I'm like, oh no. And now the same people that are like, Brittany, you're not doing anything to help activism anymore. I'm like, you know what?
Not your job, first of all, but it's,
But it wasn't working really, but it wasn't even working. That's the problem is so many people I knew were in BLM, were in queer groups, were in feminist groups, were in I was all part of the like leftist groups, guys. And whatever you think is happening, it's not. It's like AOC getting into office. You think you're going to change the world, and then you get there and realize like the whole shit is not what you think it is. It's not that simple.
No.
We're talking about billions of dollars. We're talking about countries. We're talking about whole governments. And we think as stupid little Twitter people, we're actually changing. Please sit down.
You know where change is? Change is at your local level. Change is who you by your associate with. Change is who you deal with in your own personal life, and that you have interactions with and you affect. I've been around for a long time. I have my absolute haters are just like the biggest shitlords on the planet. These people are like mentally unfucking well. But I also have people that are extremely tight with me. It's people that have known me for a very, very long time. And so who you decide to associate with, that influences them. I've had people go back to college because of my influence with them. I had people one person's working on their PhD based upon some of the work that I do.
Let's go.
You can't get much more influencer than that. As far as like our local level, we're no offense, you and I, we're nobodies on YouTube. We are literally we're called micro influencers, right? I accept that. I accept that position. I'm never going to be this big YouTuber. I don't care.
I call myself the suburban YouTuber. Let me be in a suburb. Let me be the local shop at a suburb. I don't need to be famous. But yeah, I feel like absolutely it starts with the local, even my local literal physical community in real life. Like I try to think of how I can help impact this community. Someone told me it's the 6 feet, the six feet COVID distance. Think about it like that, where you're supposed to impact the people within a 6 foot radius instead of thinking you're gonna end up impacting the whole billion planet, like the whole, literally, Steve, I'm not even telling you, I was crazy. I was literally convinced that I was going to shift the world.
Have realistic expectations, and I think a lot of millennials weren't given realistic expectations, right?
No, we weren't.
And that's frustrating, right? Because you think that they probably think they're not living up to what they're expected to be. People that lived up to things that they expected to be. Go look at the Greatest Generation. Go look at the people that served during World War II and the Vietnam War and even Korean War and any types of service for that matter. I mean, any war. These people are the ones that have influenced people. These people are the ones that did the hard work.
Okay, hold on, skirt. I'm gonna fight for my generation a little bit, but you have to admit that like the millennials really rallied a lot of the protests and people getting going. The older millennials, like the 40-year-olds and 35-year-olds and 38-year-olds, like Gen X,
to some degree.
Like they protest because, like, look, the shift is clear. My parents, they bought a house for $230,000. That same house is worth $900,000 now, right? Like we're not dealing with the same economy. We're not dealing with the same things. So we also we shouldn't expect ourselves to do the same things. We shouldn't expect ourselves to have like 10 kids like my parents did. That's such an outrageous idea to have them now. I couldn't even imagine it unless you have like a pretty good amount of money. You know what I mean? So I feel like the expectations are different, but socially, our past parents' generations are also the same ones who were anti-gay, anti-women's lib, anti-science. So I also don't want to give too much credit to them socially because they were the ones who fucked it up anyways.
Yeah, but you know what I mean?
But it's not their fault either. Like, you know what I mean? They did the best they could with the information they had, right? Like, didn't everybody?
Yeah, and again, I'm not judging them, but as you said, do you remember when a starter house was $50,000? An $80,000 maybe at the most for a starter house. Now you can't touch a property around here for less than $250,000. I sold my house. When I sold my house, I had bought my house, right? I bought my house. It was I think I paid 80-something thousand, right? Sold it. I sold it for a decent amount of equity. That house that literally is around the corner. It's right. I could walk there and be there in 3 minutes. That house is probably worth, I think, probably 250, 280, 300,000 plus right now. And it's only been 7 years since I sold it. It has doubled and tripled in value, and so, when I used to live, the houses there were small cracker boxes. They were starting at 500,000.
Yeah. Ooh, hello.
Do you know what 500,000 would have bought in the 80s?
Yeah. I know. My dad says he used to he was renting an apartment in Seal Beach, which is like a beach in Orange County, right? And he was like, I was paying like $600. And I was like, it's like $3,000 a month now. Boo boo.
I was paying $2,000. I had a lot of expenses. My mortgage was pretty low. I only paid like $500. It was $480, I think, for my mortgage.
Wow.
Plus, it was I had a good deal. And also, property tax was $3,000. So it was pretty good. Nowadays, you can't touch this. You can't. People are paying exorbitant amount for a mortgage on a 30-year, which is going to have a hell of a lot more interest. It's a lot more difficult than it was before. Even though people are making more money on a whole, like in California, because minimum wage is much higher than it was years ago. I remember when minimum wage was $8, right? I
remember. Yeah, absolutely. Less than a CD or less than a cost of a CD. That's how I used to know. Or even now, I'm single and I'm trying to buy a house. I just found one and then it got off the market within 5 days, of course. But we were looking at it and it was like $350, I think $349, and it was like maybe 1,600 square feet, little country house with like a little bit of plot of land. Mm-hmm. And that's like I was like, well, I'll just use it as my starter house. I assume I'm going to be paying at least like $300,000 to $400,000.
$300,000 for a starter house. This was unimaginable 30, 40 years ago. I mean, that's not a starter house. That's what
I'm a woman and I'm a single income.
Yeah, but that's what you tried to get to. Yeah. You made it when you had a $250,000 house back then.
Yeah.
You were considered
not
to be
anymore.
Set. No. But again, what happened when they raised, and again, we're way off pronouns, but that's how it goes, right? But it all ties in together. It does. But do you recognize that when we raised California's minimum wage, everything went up. Now, including there's a 7% inflation going on right now. But I mean, a Big Mac, back in my day was $1.50 or something, whatever.
Yeah.
A combo meal, it's like $9 or $10.
Right. You're right. No, everything. Well, that's what I'm saying.
They just passed it on to the consumer. They pay, sure, you pay the employees more, but the cost of living here is obscene in California.
It is. No, California. My brother was just in Beverly Hills to visit a friend, and he said gas was like $9 a gallon.
So in the more rural areas, like really far out of the way, it could be about $8 or $9. Now, where I'm at, it's only about $5. But can you imagine? Can you imagine back in the 70s and 80s, gas being $5 a gallon?
No, I can't even imagine what's happening. But you know what? That's why I don't even live there. But even where I am in my small little town, it's about $5 now. And I thought that was insane, because when I first got here, it was $2.20 something a gallon, and I thought that was amazing. And now it's up to $5. And that I'm just sitting here. I'm so upset for the people who are commuting. This is a mess. Like the amount they're paying in gas is outrageous.
I mean, look.
Yeah,
by the way,
there you go.
I don't want to dox myself. Okay, so but right here, this is my actual license that I got from the DMV. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Oh.
Yeah. So my interim license, right? DMV. I literally just got this the other day. Because I haven't had a license in like 6-something plus years, maybe 7 years. I haven't had a license a very long time. I let it expire. Why? Because it's so much cheaper to take the bus. Because I didn't have to pay for insurance, didn't have to pay for gas.
I see.
Good
point.
Yeah, so I just take the bus where I needed to go. Cost me whatever on a VA thing, 60 cents a trip. So $1.20 rather than spending $10,000 a year that I didn't have to spend for something that I would need to go to work. Well, I top the bus down here.
That's what I did in Seattle. I loved Seattle's transportation. When I worked there, I just took the bus everywhere if I had to. And driving was like fun when I could do it, but parking, finding a place to put your car is so annoying in a big city. So I can see the perks there. Okay, now I think, this is what makes me think about pronouns, and really to tie it all back, to bring us back to the conversation. Part of me wants to look at all of these movements and say, I understand all of your, I understand your desire to be seen and loved. That is like the greatest desire of a human being. But in terms of how a community runs itself, I think we have to be a lot more self-aware about what pressures we're asking society to perform at what standard, right? Because I do think it is a luxury to think about your pronouns. I think it is an internal struggle, but a community luxury. So we need to think about how we are operating as individuals and then within the community structure. So I personally, with this whole Olympian pronoun, trans people performing in Olympics, that whole conversation, a part of me is honestly, not my monkeys, not my circus. I don't do sports. I'm not involved in sports. But I know that Olympics, it impacts our governments, because our governments have Russia versus USA. It's not as simple as, should trans people be able to be in? This is, I feel like, because government is so involved with how we do everything socially, everything we do socially impacts government, and therefore it impacts international politics and how we interact with one another. And so we have to be aware that the thing we're asking of society is going to have an impact like it's having now, right? I just want people to be aware. Same with the religious people. Religious people, I always tell my mom, you went so hard against the homosexuals. No wonder they got upset and now they don't trust you. Don't you understand? The religious went so hard on LGBT people. Yeah. They have no reason to trust the religious people.
I agree.
Zero reason to believe that you're not going to kill them. I just saw a modern Muslim guy debate Destiny, the YouTuber Destiny. And he said with a straight face to Destiny, who's a bisexual man, yes, if we catch you being homosexual, we will kill you. But this is why everyone would be healthier. He was making the argument that people would be healthier in a Muslim world than a liberal world.
Yeah, it's and they rationalize it. I had a similar thing.
They rationalize it. Yeah, exhausting.
I've had Destiny on. I don't have anything against Destiny. I don't. The only thing I not a fan of Destiny is when he, in his debates, he just spews stuff left and freaking right, and it's very fact oriented. Yes, but it's very, very at a high fast pace, where the other person is not able to digest it, and it's not a technique that I particularly like in debating, right? Because he speaks very, very quickly, and I do as well. Yeah. But he's just like a machine gun. It's there's no back and forth, and so I don't watch his debates. He's been on a few debates that I've had on the show, but
yeah.
But as far as a personally, I have nothing against Destiny or Vosh either. Vosh has always been cool to me. But for example, they just talk about, wanting to kill. I had a guy on just the other day. He was on to talk about young earth creationism. And an hour into the show, he's like, we're talking about Ken Hovind, who believes that the government should kill gay people. And he's like, oh yeah, I believe that. I'm like, this went dark. I'm like, okay, we can't let this go. So the entire show changed instantaneously from the topic because it's Non-Sequitur Show. We're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it ended up being an hour of like, why do you think that it's ethical for the government to come in and kill people, but you won't kill them, right? You find it egregious to say, no, I can't. I'm not going to kill the person. Well, let government do it. I'm like, so you're basically absolving yourself of any ethical considerations. Absolutely. And then giving that to some other person to do some shitty shit. That's what you're doing, and you find that to be ethical. But God said.
God said, take a chill pill, bro. Yeah. God said, take a chill pill. This is what I'm saying, though, is I'll call my mother and I'm like, Mom, you know, like people are out here representing your religion as like crazy. You should get out there and make it clear. And then she's just like, no, Batsy, everybody knows reasonable people don't kill people. And I was like,
not so much. Yeah. By the way, I'm looking at the live chats. I've been trying to keep up.
Please do.
I'm watching them both.
I can't. So I can't look at the chats. I'll get distracted. So you do it for me, please. Tell me.
Sure. Yeah, I know you're very, myopic. I get it. We don't want to overload. Please don't. Look, your people already know you are not a techno person. This is straight up.
I'm a boomer.
You're not a techno person. But one of my friends said, Kimwaki said he's old, significantly older than me. I'm like, dude, if you're significantly older, they call that dead. Okay, I'm up there. Now there's an off-topic question here, but I'm all for any kind of questions for Q&A. Right?
Yeah.
So this person is on your chat. I don't know them. I don't know how they know my argument, but they had asked me, if you don't mind, Q for Steve.
Please.
Okay. In your semantic collapse argument, a response to an established position in philosophy, it seems weird to use the term atheism to simultaneously denote strong atheism and weak atheism. Both of them use the term atheism, strong and weak. One is a subset of the other, right? Strong atheism is a subset of weak because you do not believe, and then as a subgroup of that, you have the belief that God does not exist. What I did in my paper that went through pre-peer review already, that I do want to have published, it shows by what's called a symbiotic square of opposition that by using such terminology that some atheists have advocated for, it to me produces what's called an axiological devaluation, where these terms semantically collapse and they have no real meaning to each other to describe any differences. And in other words, they represent the same position. They're just different, what's called semantics. They just have a, if I say dog or perro, I can't do Spanish, they mean the same thing, right? Gato or cat mean the same thing. They're just semantically different. I make that argument and I show using logic that if you start using these watered down terminologies, that's what happens. It leads to a semantic collapse, and therefore these words become axiologically devalued. And so when I'm communicating with somebody and I want them to understand what I'm referring to, if I use two words that mean the exact same thing, but to somebody else they mean two different things, it's confusing, right? So that's their answer.
That works really well with the pronoun conversation.
Words, yeah. Well, again, if I say Brittany went to the store and they decided to change their mind and went to the movies instead, it's like, who the hell is Brittany out with?
Yeah.
Who's hanging out with Brittany, right?
So funny. I don't mind it. So emotionally, like, can I just get my feelings right now? Emotionally, I really want people to live their one life exactly how they want, because I do think we're animals evolved on a planet and we're all going to die and it doesn't matter. And at the same time, I'm not sure that they really believe that. Because of that, I think this is where all this issue comes up. Because if we really all think we're evolved animals over time, like whatever that means, I just can't imagine that these things can matter in terms of, do you want to spend 50 years of your life fighting for these things? And I understand that as a society, I think we can get there in a much smoother way if we do the anti-government stance. Like leftists and Republicans both hate the government. So why aren't we just making that the stance? Because people don't actually hate the government as much as they think, or because they need a more concrete reason to fight for things? Like, did you see the whole debacle with Dave Chappelle and people wanting to cancel him because of the way he talks about trans people?
Yeah,
I just think that's so interesting. I just think that's so interesting. I couldn't imagine caring what Dave Chappelle thinks about my life. And then I realized
oh, go ahead. Well,
no, please.
It's not just so much what you care, what he thinks about your life, is he's a comedian. A comedian. Look, as soon as you say that you're in a protected group that's off of mockery, that somehow cannot be mocked, you're going to be the group that's mocked. Why? Because you're thinking yourself, you're special, right? Look what happened with the slap with Will Smith, right? That became an international meme. You know, he elevated to the point where he just kind of let it go. Nobody would have been talked about the next day. Nobody would have given a shit that Chris Rock made a joke, right? Nobody would have cared that Chris Rock, a comedian, made a joke. Whether you find it funny or not, I had no problem with his joke. I just didn't. But
it was fine.
If you did, okay. But nobody, it would have been forgotten about. But he escalated it and made it newsworthy by taking it way, to the just umpteenth next levels. And now, because of that, he's suffering the fallout from that.
Both are they both are. People hate Jada now more than ever, and so before now they're just making fun of her 100 times more. And that's what I'm saying. We are high school, but with money, guys. Like high school, it works the same way in the playground. If you make yourself, it's just like bullying 101, which is kind of funny to me. And then again, I don't even describe. I think I'm the anti-bullying in a real way, but I think adults who know each other should bully each other. Like I like that Destiny bullies me, and I like that you and I would feel comfortable poking fun at you. But that's maybe because we know each other, but also we're here for the same reason. We're just here to have good ideas and or float around good and bad ideas to see what the good idea is. So it's maybe that's it. I'm truly open to being wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. What am I going to do about it? But I think some people aren't open to it. Like my mother isn't actually open to Catholicism not being the real answer. Like everybody must know this, right? So when my mom says things like, "Oh yeah, Betsy, I'm open to it, maybe being wrong." I'm like, but you're not really. Not really. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well, I see a lot of people that say they're open-minded and they'll change their minds given enough evidence, and I throw the BS flag.
They won't. They won't. They absolutely won't.
I've given people objective logic, mathematics, and say, look, this is not open to interpretation. This is math. This is not your subjective. This is like going to play a middle C and calling it a D note. It just doesn't work, right? Even though you can label things you want, you can call by what you want, and semantics and it labels with pronouns. It's just words. That's all they are, words. It doesn't change anything physiologically speaking. It doesn't change anything ontologically speaking. And so when I show somebody, look, this is a mathematical relationship, your opinion on it doesn't matter. It doesn't change that fact. And they can say I'm wrong. And I could be like, okay, look, you can say I'm wrong. You're wrong. Here's the mathematical proof. Talk to anybody that knows what they're talking about. But they'll say, well, you show me enough evidence and I'll change my mind. And I give them an actual proof, right? A mathematical proof in calculus and algebra, whatever. And they're like, oh, that's prove your proof. And it's like, oh, shut up. Just
prove your proof. I love that. That's beautiful, actually.
What does that even mean?
Non Sequitur was the show that I watched a lot during some certain debates I had where I didn't want to full on research it myself because it takes time to do these things. And so I was watching your guests talk about flat earth as an example. And I just remember at that time in my life how I felt like I went through this deep dive on the flat earth theories, which were so interesting. But I've met so many nice, genuine, good people who are like, Brittany, you haven't seen the evidence. I swear flat earth is real. And I appreciate their genuine passion for a belief they have. But I can't start jumping on these bandwagons where I don't even know how to decipher the evidence except by listening to people who do. So we're putting a lot of faith in what we know. I don't know if people are willing to admit that out loud, that we really personally all usually know very little. I've never been in medical school. I don't really understand how it works. I trust my doctors to give me the information. And that's a form of faith. It is a form of belief outside the knowing. So it's very hard when we're having these conversations, I think about pronouns and gender, to know what we're fighting for. I feel like we're fighting for a person's right to exist. But people feel like they're fighting for the objective truth. And that's where them and me will start going, oops, see, now we're not on the same page. I don't think your non-binariness is an objective, truthful, physical thing that's happening. I think it's a spiritual, metaphysical, personal thing that's happening. And it's your right to experience it. But I don't think it's your right. It's psychological.
Yeah,
and I think that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fine. It's the same. I don't need gayness to be a real thing for me to feel like I can really express it. Even though I think my attraction to women is pretty clear, I don't think it needs to be objective for it to be ethical. And I think I just run this thing where everyone wants to have the surface debate of should we use pronouns? It's use whatever you want. But when you're in a certain group of people, I don't think it's necessary to announce that I'm gay when I'm with a bunch of evangelical Christians.
No.
What the fuck's the point?
And I get that as well, right? I mean, pick your battles, right? I have a super chat on my end. Godless Scummer for £5 says, when Chuck Norris makes a joke about Will Smith's wife, Will Smith slaps himself. Yeah, it's funny, Godless Scummer, that that I've seen that before, and thank you. But also in that, can you imagine if it was something like The Rock that was hosting the Oscars like that? Chris Rock is a much smaller guy than Will Smith, and I felt that to be just and how security didn't step in.
Right, that crazy.
Yeah, and he was supposedly was asked to leave, but he got a ban. They treated him on a completely different level, because if I would have walked up there and slapped somebody, I would have been away in handcuffs. Especially if it was a woman or a black person, and there would have been a hate crime or a racial crime or a gender crime. And by the way, I have no problem with that. I think a lot of these things are motivated usually because of race and gender. I think a lot of people,
do you think this is a Will Smith privilege?
Yeah, it was privilege.
But Will Smith privilege, specifically Will Smith privilege.
Yeah. Will Smith is a very well-known, popular actor. He's a very good actor. I always liked Will Smith's work. I thought he was great in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Totally.
I liked his singing too. I thought he had a good voice. He's extremely talented. What he doesn't
Everyone
have,
loves Will. What
he doesn't have is emotional stability and control, and he let that get out of check. And
totally.
And they blame Jenna Pinkett Smith for it. Why? Because she didn't stop him. She didn't. It was all surrounded by her. She didn't care if he sacrificed his goodwill that he's built up for how many decades? What is he? 50?
Yeah.
Was he 40, 50?
They're in their 50s. Yeah, they're all in their 50s. A bunch of 50-year-olds slapping each other on the Oscars.
Yeah. By the way, he looks great for his age. Look at me. I mean,
they all look great. No, they all look beautiful, and that's the problem.
That's not just makeup. That's genes.
No, I just did a whole podcast about this. That I think it's funny that I wake up happy every day, and Will Smith can't figure out how to do that. And I'm like, what's the point of being rich and famous if you guys can't figure out how to have inner peace and chill?
Yeah, he's 53.
And I don't get it.
He's 53.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's a year older than me, or less than a year older than me.
That's crazy.
Yeah, look,
but look, no one in that room did anything. That's what I'm saying. Everyone froze, Steve. Everyone is like, but that's normal.
But security shouldn't freeze. That's their job.
Security shouldn't have frozen. I think they were even they didn't expect Will Smith to go fucking crazy, because honestly, he's Will Smith. You're right. They expected him to be reasonable.
To protect. Look, I'm not going to tell people where I'm working, obviously, because that'd be stupid. Because I have some shitty people out there. But I will say that my job involves asset protection and loss prevention. It can get. I don't know if you've ever done loss prevention, but it can get pretty rough dealing with people. Okay.
Yeah. People are crazy.
People are crazy, yeah. And so, it's a job some people don't want to do, because it can get to altercations. I personally don't care as far as that. As I've been trained for loss prevention in other places.
Are you ready to take down? Are you ready to fight? Is that what you're telling me right now? Should I show up where you work and fight you?
I'm willing to protect the assets, and I mean, in this case, the people that work there.
My assets? What are the assets?
I would take a bullet for you, the arm or leg, not the chest or face.
Stop.
Don't go crazy, okay?
Stop.
I'll at least get a graze or something, okay? But
you're such a man.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I was raised that way, Brittany. I swear to God, I was raised old fashioned, and I had a feminist tell me, there was a feminist next door who blocked me over this. She blocked me because she was talking about these microaggressions, and I'm like, look, I was raised to treat women with respect. I was raised to open the car door for them, to pull out their chair, to pay for their dinner. And if you want to call that some kind of patriarchal stuff in your little communities, be my guest. But don't take that as something that is to have offense by. Don't take it as something. Oh, Steve's a bad person because he treated somebody with respect and opened the door for them. And this is what I asked her, Brittany. I swear to God, I asked her. I said, so you think holding a door open for a woman is a microaggression? By the way, I hold it open for everybody. It's not just women. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, okay, you have two logical options. You hold the door open, or you don't hold the door open. There's no other options. And I said, if you don't hold the door open, you're kind of being a dick. So the only option to me makes sense is to open the door for a woman.
Right.
And so she blocked me on that. I swear, I'm like, wait a minute, though. So you're telling me it's a microaggression to open a door for a woman, but your other option is to be an asshole and don't open the door. Am I confused here? Am I missing some other possible explanation?
But wait, humans do this. We go in a cycle. So we go through stringent, traditional, and then somebody rebels and it's actually the right answer. But then the new generation comes and they rebel even further. And you're like, okay, hold on, sir. Too fast, too soon. Hold on. So it's yes, don't maybe in the beginning they were hold open doors because women are retarded. And you're like, oh, women aren't retarded. We shouldn't have to open up doors for them. But then we get back to the point where it's yeah, but shouldn't we be helping people by opening doors for everybody? Mm-hmm. And so now the answer is instead we should just be helping people. People should be helping people.
Yeah, and if you don't, though, it's a sign of respect, right? Like when you genuflex to somebody, right, and you say namaste or things of that nature. In Chinese, when you say ni hao ma, right, these are signs of respect. So when somebody like myself in my generation, which was the chivalrous more type generation, because I do tend to virtue ethics and I do tend to all these things are Aristotelian. It's a matter of respect, right? And that's how it should be thought of. And because to me, intent matters. what she didn't realize, what the feminist next door didn't realize, is because there's only two options, one's being an asshole and the other one's open the door. What matters is, what's the reason to this person open the door? Do they open the door because they want to show off their masculinity and like, oh, you're subservient to me, I'm going to open the door for you because you're too weak to do it? Or was a sign of respect? That's what should be thought of. The reasons behind something are open to conversation. That's fine.
Honestly, you're insecure. Look, when I first moved to this old town, it was so cute. These two older cowboys, I opened up the door for them at a Walmart and they went, "Oh, ma'am, I'm not gender neutral. I need to open the door for you." And I was like, okay, that's not how you use that sentence.
Yeah. The words don't really strew together that way in that syntax, but whatever.
And so I just went, okay, like if it's important to you, you can open a door for me. And I closed the door. I moved to the side, which took a billion years longer. And I was like, go ahead and open the door for me. He opened up the door. He's like, "Thank you, ma'am." I was like, "I'm happy to make you feel like a man." And like, that's what we're really doing. So as a good community member.
Wait, did you just say you were happy to make him feel like a man?
Yeah, like, and I gave him a little like pat on the shoulder. He said, no, that's the thing though. He wanted to feel like a man. He's like, "This is what I need to do to feel like a man." I was like, "Then I'll give it to you." And that's the thing. I'm not saying everyone should do what I did, but I'm saying that for me, I'm not going to take offense that an old man, his whole sense of dignity comes from his ability to serve his community by opening doors for women. Like, okay, I don't agree with the logic, but it's not my business to agree with it. It's my decision to decide if I'm going to waste my time participating in his reality. And most of the time, yeah, I do. Most of the time, I am participating in other people's realities. Look, if you come to me and say, "I'm non-binary," meaning I live outside the reality of my sex, what I'm saying is like, "Oh, now I'm going to join you on your reality trip and I'm here for it. Let's go. Let's go." But I as a cis person, honestly, I can't really know what that's like, right? I have no idea what it's like to not just operate through my sex.
Yeah, well, and
so it's just,
but most people they tend to the phenotype, right? For example, you are phenotypically a female, right? If all of a sudden you became trans, became mentally a man or something like that, right? Most guys would still be attracted to you. It wouldn't matter to them, right? Because they're looking at the physicality aspect of it. Yeah. And so when you say will you date somebody who's trans, it's like, okay, well there's a whole bunch of different questions on that. If you fell in love with somebody, someone is dating you, and they fell in love with you, and they like you for all your womanalities, right? Things that women have certain things that by the way, you both and I agree we like about women. If they suddenly became a man, then that might put strains in the relationship as far as like the dynamics. But you physically probably wouldn't stop being attracted to them because it's the physicality aspect. And so a lot of people don't differentiate those types of things, and they kind of just lump it all together. And I think that's a disservice. I think it's all it does is say, well, you won't date somebody with a penis. It's like, well, and by the way, I said the P word. I don't know if your audience don't know that, but I'm suing somebody who claimed that I actually sexually harassed them by saying the word penis before a show on this channel, which, by the way, didn't even happen. I swear to God, that didn't even happen. But it's like, wait, saying the word penis now is sexual harassment?
Okay, this whole time I thought about correcting my boobs, but then I was like, I can't because I'm on Steve's show. But if we were just on my show, I would literally correct my boobs in front of my audience because I don't care.
Well, I think YouTube.
Is that considered? Oh, they don't care because I'm gonna reach in and like move my boobs around. Okay. I just want, like, I can feel that they're out of place because like girl boobs, like you know what I'm saying? Like I have boobs. These are boob problems. If you have boobs, you have boob problems. So like you have boobs that just like are pushing. Anyways, the point is like, would that be sexual harassment if I felt like it would be inappropriate, which is why I haven't done it yet.
First of all, you know I couldn't give a shit. I've seen.
Really? Are you sure? I'm gonna fix them.
I've seen your OnlyFans, girl. Come on.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so I just had to fix them.
I am a guy. I know what they look like. I mean, Jesus.
We know what boobs look like. But that's
I used to sell bras.
Good for you. So you know how to measure a bra and everything.
Yeah, from the bust line, the under, the yeah. By the way, fun fact for men who don't know that different manufacturers size things completely different. I was hanging out with a woman. Fun story. I was hanging out with a woman at a bar that I know, and the boobs always come up in bars. Of course. And she's just like, well, what do you think I am? And I said, well, first of all, I used to do this, and I said, you're probably I'm guessing a 34 C or cup, and she's like, no, I'm a 30. I said 30. Yeah, 34 D, but she's like, no, I'm a double D cup, and I'm like, and she literally showed me the tag, and it was double D. I'm like, those are not double Ds. No offense, those are not double Ds. No, it's just the bra size with double D, right? But that doesn't make your boobs double D. There's a big difference between a C cup and a double D cup, and so I was just like, yeah, that's so yeah, I do know how to size. I can size visually.
Yeah, no, that happened to me because when I was at my like fattest, my boobs got pretty big. But then when I went to go get them measured, they're like, they're double D. I'm like, I mean, I'll brag about that, I guess, but like, they ain't no double D, bro. Like, I've seen a double D.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen that. Like, I'm not a double D. And even now, at my thinnest, like, my boobs are pretty nice. They're a handful, but they're a handful. That's it. Like, they're like a nice little.
Which is most people.
But
it's like.
Yeah, and I stopped wearing actual bras as bras a long time ago. Like, I'm not wearing a bra right now, obviously. Like, why would I? I'm not even going commando 100% right now, girl. But like, it's one of those things where like, I don't know. This is what I'm saying though. Your image, like, people would put so much stake on their image growing up. Like, what bra size were you? And I'm just sitting here like, this is so silly. Like, this is so silly. Everything we're doing to like identify ourselves and make ourselves above other people. We had this debate in my Discord yesterday about whether or not I'm basic. And I was like, I think everyone's basic.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, no, some people aren't basic. I was like, we're all basic at the end of the day though. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just a basic person. My life is basic. Everything is.
I think most people are basic, but a lot of people try to attempt to not look or be basic, right? I mean, they overdo it.
So isn't it by attempting making you basic? Like, do you know what I'm saying? If you have to attempt to not be basic,
then you're basic. But I'm fine with that. I don't care.
Yeah. What's the issue? Like, I don't see the issue.
I don't have edging. I don't have filters. I don't wear makeup. And again, there's nothing wrong with a lot of this stuff, as long as people are aware that you are portraying yourself to be, a little bit different than your actual reality. And again, you live in their world. When you see people that they're just so decked out and with makeup and fillers and Botox and filters and it's just like that's not a real person any longer. It's a caricature of what their real identity really is, because that's what they want to portray, and that's fine if they want to do that. If being basic is me not doing that, I'm okay with that. That's
the thing. I think people who wear all that makeup stuff are also basic, because like I think they're all like, that's what I mean. I'm not convinced anyone's actually special, which makes everyone special. But like, I don't think anyone like, I just can't imagine that at the end of the day, we all just don't go home and do the same basic shit we're all doing. Like, don't we all just go home and do the same basic shit and hang out with our families and shit in our toilets? Like, we're not that special when we get home. It's just when we're performing outside in public. Like, even for this live show, do you think I'm going to be in these clothes all day, boo-boo? No.
I'm in sweats.
These are live show clothes.
I'm in sweats.
Like, yeah, I wear sweats 90% of my time.
I like
sweats,
so many
90%.
pairs of sweats. Yes, I have 3 pairs of the same gray sweats. One of my friends got us together and he said, wants you to ask you. He says, I swear a couple months ago, I was talking to a feminist who hadn't even heard of Mary Wollstonecraft and Sylvia Plankenhurst. I know Plankenhurst. She was a suffragist. I'm not familiar with. He says Brittany would know who they are. Do you know Mary Wollstonecraft? I
don't know names. Names people.
Sylvia Plankenhurst is pretty well known. Yeah, she was.
Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. The other day someone said someone's name, and like I remembered who they were, but I didn't even remember like why I knew that name. Yeah, I don't memorize like people's names, so I don't even know those names. What do they do? Like, maybe if you gave me their work, I'd be able to know.
Oh, she was, like I said, she was really big in
suffragists.
She was against fascism. And
I haven't learned about women's suffrage in like
Africa.
Years.
She was way back in the day with the Ethiopian, trying to promote women's rights in Ethiopia.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
But yeah, well, the whole thing about like the feminist movement, again, obviously was well needed. Obviously, when women didn't have the right to vote, there's a problem. They happen to be constituents of America, right? So all these things that women have now, they didn't have back then. Now, is there still inequalities? Yes, but people don't recognize that equity. I think equity is far more valuable than equality. Because equality is just under the eyes of the law. Sure, everybody has equality, but as far as like how people treat you, I don't care how people treat me if I'm treated equal or not. What I want is equity. If I have needed something more than somebody else, that's how you get a more stabilized society. Because again, legally, fine, equality under the law, but you're never going to have true equality as far as society as how people treat you. It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. Well, that's. No, radically accepting that, like radically realizing that humans go in cycles and that every generation has to fight for their idea of what they're fighting for is just something that I have now, it's changed my whole life. It really has. Like, look, someone's mentioning Amber Heard in the comments. Like, look at the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case. Like, I've been following it for years. And obviously, like, I think Johnny is the victim in this situation.
I do too.
But many people believed Amber Heard. And this is why I never made a public statement about it. I remember when it happened, everyone's like, Brittany, Team Amber. And I was like, something feels wrong here. Something feels bad. And I'm going to wait. And I'm so glad I waited to make a public statement because, look, like Johnny, in my opinion, I think the evidence has shown they might have been in a toxic relationship. I mean, I've been there, but he is not the predator in the relationship.
It was toxic, but it was all her. It was her. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's the issue. And so ultimately, I think this is just a good example of this woman had the ability. She was allowed to go in the public and write an article and make a statement. And we all knew she was talking about Johnny, and he was able to get fired and lose his livelihood. But then she got benefited. In what way? When she, I mean, physically hit him, shit on their bed, did so many things that made it clear like she is the awful one. But then she became this quote unquote human rights activist. Yeah. Right? Like, look how easily, just because she was easily believed.
A pretty woman who was easily believed. Yeah.
We need to grow up, and we need to recognize like it is so much more layered and complicated. And for you to just blindly accept that Amber Heard is a victim because she said so is a form of sort of like insanity to some extent, which is why like you should be cynical and be a realist about the nature of humans.
Yeah, it's not so much of a cynical, being cynical. The thing is, there's always okay to doubt things, right? What happened was when they heard the statement, "Believe all women," most people didn't know what was meant by that. Believe all women did not ever mean, it was never supposed to mean, oh, if a woman tells you this happened to her, you must believe them. What it was give them the benefit of the doubt to investigate properly.
Right, totally.
That's what it was for, and as well as it should be.
You know the shortcuts, but Steve, you know those billboard shortcuts they use in politics?
Yes.
All we hear is like,
it's a soundbite.
Like the whole all lives.
It's a soundbite.
Yeah, it's like, that's like saying all lives matter. It's like, ooh, it makes people go, that's not exactly like Black Lives Matter doesn't mean white lives don't matter. Yeah, you don't need to make it.
The Black Lives Matter thing was because police were killing African Americans at a much higher rate. They're being stopped at a much higher rate. They're being criminalized for things that most people would get off with a warning for. These were things that were being against the black community that they were standing up. They were being killed. A black person walking down the street was much more likely to be shot by an officer than a white person. These are just normative facts. I mean, anybody who argues against that has never ever talked to anybody that's in those communities or read anything.
Just like the pronouns thing, just like with race will eventually get better over time naturally as we go about doing it. Like I think these protests are necessary to some extent, but I would argue they're not as efficient as people think they are either. So like I was involved in these protests, and I remember thinking like, why aren't we moving forward faster than I thought we would? And ultimately we all learned because we can't, because we all don't agree on the goal. We are not all in agreement. We need to acknowledge that none of our communities are all in agreement for what our goals are.
Correct.
The trans community doesn't even agree to, that's why they're segregated. That's why like certain like famous trans people aren't interacting with younger people because they don't even agree on the goals. So ultimately, this is the chaos of being a human that I love, is that we don't even agree on what it means to be compassionate, empathetic, loving, like what it means to be good, what it means to move forward. And so this is what brings chaos, which is fine. We will learn. We will take 2 steps forward and 1 step back and 2 steps forward and we'll just do that until we sort of create stability, whatever that means.
I don't even like communities that much. I'm not a big fan of communities. I had this discussion just the other day. Exactly the same thing. People were like, you weren't speaking up enough in public. I was doing things in private, but one, because I knew a lot more information what people think I do, because I talk to a lot of fucking people. But what I did in private, I wanted to do in private because it was personal. I had personal things that was nobody's fucking business. But because I didn't speak out in public, people were trying to vilify me for it. And I'm like, look, my life isn't YouTube drama, okay? I never really got into that side of that because I always found most of them were just as shitty as the people that I didn't like. So why was I just didn't deal with it. I didn't talk about it. I will talk to anybody. People come on my show I don't like.
You shouldn't feel obligated to be, that's what I'm saying. We shouldn't have a society where everyone is like, you should be tattling. You should be telling on people. You should be, and it's such a weird idea. But you know why? It's crazy because once it happens to them, it's complete denial or complete like, no. Guys, stop it. Like it's stressing me out. I'm losing my hair.
Do you know how many people have messaged me saying, hey, Steve, thank you for giving me the benefit of the doubt, not jumping on the bandwagon, waiting for all the facts to come out. So many people have messaged that,
Totally.
But the one time I don't, and the person happens to be a shitty person kind of stuff, it's like, okay, but as soon as I had all the facts, as soon as the things that, that it happened to affect me and people I care about and stuff like that, then I'll start speaking out more. But don't push me anything. I'm not somebody's weapon to be used because you have some kind of agenda. And then somebody said, well, it became an issue in the community. I'm like, I'm not in your community. I reject your community. Don't put me in your fucking community. Okay. Because I mean, just because I associate with you on, this and there, I'm not in certain communities. Like you have your own community. I love your Discord, by the way. And thank you for inviting me to it.
Me too. I love it. Thank you.
I'm not part of your community. Not that I have anything against. This is like different worlds. Maybe I will
different
join
bubbles.
More.
Totally.
Yeah, different bubbles. Great.
Totally.
Yeah. Exactly.
Totally. Which, by the way, Hey Bay says something, and I'm gonna I'm gonna have an issue with it. It says we need to hold those who lie about victimhood accountable because victims are regularly not believed, and for those few rotten apples undermine everyone who's legitimately a victim. Yes. So on the surface, I think that is correct. Ultimately, I think it's also going to be an issue because what we'll do is like I meet people all the time who lie. I don't want to say unintentionally, but kind of like ignorantly, and I'm like, you're not really the victim in this, are you? And they're like, but aren't I? And I'm like, no.
Okay, that's
like,
different
but I
though.
see it that way.
That's
but
different.
Wait, no, you say it's different. But look, just like the pronoun people went crazy with their pronouns, we're gonna go crazy. Humans are stupid, and we are absolutely gonna go crazy with the throw victims in jail. You know how people always say if a woman falsely accuses a man of rape, she should serve the same amount of time. Okay, I don't agree with that, but I agree with the nature around it, which is we should hold people accountable. But I don't think I'm anti-prisons. So throwing a woman in jail for lying about a false rape is like not helping. She like that's not normal. What
would be the penalties?
There has to be some sort of like I'm more of a rehabilitation kind of person.
Restorative justice.
With the work, I'm sorry, and I don't want to be that much of an egoist here, but I'm sorry, my work speaks for itself. I think I have helped transform people outside of this narrative because I've given a safe space for them to be bad guys. I've said, yeah, you're being kind of a bad guy. Do you want to embrace it for a second and then be a better person? Because look, if you're not allowed to be and acknowledge, I'm been a shitty. Look, I see this with Lauren Southern all the time. Mr. Girl and Lauren Southern will have conversations. I don't know if you know who these people are, but they'll have conversations where Lauren isn't allowed to admit she was ever a bad person. So she's never safe to admit her problems because once she does, then people want to hold her accountable for crimes she did before. So she'll never say it out loud. And so my whole thing is I don't even need to hold you accountable. I just need you to stop to understand you don't have to be this way anymore. So look, there's a thing that happens where a human brain, this is what happens in prison populations, is they say, once I get out, since society doesn't reward me for serving my time by denying me voting rights, denying me jobs, denying me all these things, I'm just going to go back into a life of criminality because it's better than going back into the world of being rejected by the normies, right? The people who don't commit crimes. There is no solution for the human condition if it's punishment, 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 punishment. I don't want to punish people. I want to tell them you are not serving yourself or your community by being this way. Why did you do it? And then weed out the narcs and the crazy people and the completely unhinged. And maybe we'll have jail for the Charles Mansons. But in general, right, when I'm dealing with really insecure women and men, they lie, cheat, steal from their partners. They're constantly doing horrible things. And half of the time it's because they're fucking stupid. I'm like, okay.
I tell you what. There's two things I want to say. One, you and I are going to have another discussion next month on restorative, retributive, and reformative justice. Okay, there's different principle of justice. You and I are going to have that discussion. I think it's a great discussion to be had. So that's the next time. Because I want to talk to you as much as possible. I really do. I think having you on is so great. So if we can make a stream like this once a month, if you have the time, I would be thrilled to freaking death. I love that.
Okay.
Second thing. As far as people that falsely accuse people of crimes. Okay. I have been falsely accused, as you well know, of sending death threats to people. I have been accused of committing fraud, medical fraud, social security fraud, disability fraud, and sexual harassment, which is not a crime per se, but it is definitely, to me, as somebody who deals with ethics, I take that very personally, right? And so my response, obviously, was through civil litigation. I sued, my former partner who took the show, took the money, and obviously I won. He gave me all,
you should.
He signed a confession of judgment for $115,000. We turned the channel. He only has to pay $35,000 of that. If he misses a single payment, it all comes due, and if he misses, we start the court case over again, which we might have to do because there's some issues right now, but we'll see if he follows through with it. But he did sign all those things. He was for your audience. He was found liable for submitting alternative. Well, he had two criminal contempt charges for filing false reports with the court, fabricating information to the court like records and photoshopping shit. He was found liable for fraudulent conversion, unfair and deceptive trade practices, breach of fiduciary duty, breach of contract, and what was the other thing? And some other stuff. But the point being is, I had to go through 2.5 years of litigation for him. Related to him, though, another YouTuber had falsely accused me of sex. So same things, which I was vindicated for. But she also accused me of sexual harassment, as you know, and said that when she tried to file this false TRO against me and other content creators that spoke out against her, she had lied to the court. She had said that we were in the same room together when it happened. I've never been in the same state with this woman. I cannot be in the same room with somebody if I've never been in the same state. She absolutely lied to the court saying we were in the same room together. Because it was like, oh, I meant it was a call like this, you know, I'm like, this is not a room. When you're getting a TRO for somebody and you say you're in the same room together, that right. And so she said that the judge sua sponte put this thing under what's called the Violence Against Women's Act. That is defamation. One, that never happened. Two, that the VA Violence Against Women Act was not funded up to until it was stopped being funded in 2019, so it couldn't have been. And so I'm suing her because she had absolutely went out of her way, not just, I was incorrect. She went out of her way to lie to her audience of 250,000 people to say that I somehow, you know, sexually harassed her. And the judge thought it's so egregious because supposedly I said the word penis that she put it into the Violence Against Women's Act. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Nothing works like this.
Yes, she is, by the way. So like there is a form of like, right, just like with my former stalker too. And I've been accused by 3 different women of like different things over my life, you know, because as a gay woman coming out, I was definitely like accused by like conservative women who didn't want to admit they were fucking gay and eating pussy. So like people would definitely like falsely accuse you for reputation wise. And I think that's so interesting. So in those ways, like, but you know what? Okay, so as a person, I was really hurt and impacted by those things. Obviously, it was a big deal. This state of being now, I just want those people to get better, obviously. But at the moment, like there has to be a clear, you can't do this though. Like you can't, I know you're like having a moment where you feel like you are justified in like falsely accusing people. But like if society was more stable, they would literally just look at these people and say, no.
Right. So what's the ramification? Look, I'm suing her, but I'm not the only one suing her. She was sued by Toddy Westbrook for defamation. She's in court right now from a guy named Todd Chrisley from the show Chrisley Knows Best. That's suing her.
Really? See, but is that sad? Don't you know? That's a crazy person, though, right? So that's a crazy person.
She needs mental help, but that's not my problem. That I went on her way and she lied. A guy named Robert Shin from 7M Productions suing her, and 3 more members from the Chrisley family are planning to bring a lawsuit against her, all for defamation. Yes. That's a problem. Right. This is a woman who lies regularly for views that got started on my show that was a co-host with the guy that I sued. And so, yes, it's very personal with me. She deliberately lied about me in order to just try to substantiate his claims, to try to vilify me, and I wasn't having any of it. You know me personally. I take something like that to be, I'm mortified by it. You know, if you would accuse, like, the same thing, like you, who is actually a friend that I care about, if you would accuse me of something like that, I would be devastated. Right?
Obviously, that would be a huge betrayal. I couldn't give a fuck
if she accused me of it as far as that, right? It's not devastating to me. But it's still false information that she's used to weaponize against me.
No. She's obviously the bad guy. Like, obviously. And like, obviously my like compassionate sympathy side is like, oh my gosh, she's crazy though. Like, she's crazy because like a normal person wouldn't do this. Or maybe they would if they were really bad at business. Because like, I think about that, what's that guy's name? The black guy who pretended he was noosed in Chicago.
Oh.
See, Jesse.
Yeah.
Smollett? Yeah, Smollett or whatever. I think about him and I'm like, so are you crazy or crazy? Like a reasonable person would have just been, you know, he swears it to the end of time. And I'm like, it didn't happen.
I don't know if he actually believes it or not that it happened. I mean, it's hard to, he needs obviously a professional evaluation to say, okay, did this delusion actually happen or not in your mind? I mean, did you actually just experience a delusion or if it's just complete fabrication? I can tell you right now, her story is a fabrication. It is not a rewriting of history. It's not delusion. I have the actual exculpatory evidence. This is one of the reasons why I want to take her to court. I have the evidence that she's full of shit that I can show the judge and say, look, not only did she has no evidence to support it, I have exculpatory evidence to show that in a communications with, I have communications.
This is a good way to hold her accountable, right? Because like it's the legal system. I don't know what will happen to her, but it's a way to say, hey, we can't just like let these things slide. You know, bankruptcy. It's like, we can't let these things slide. You can't just do this to people. It's very cruel what you're doing. So it's like now, it's like, I always tell people, don't put me in a position where I have to come for you, please. Because now I'm gonna have to don't do this to yourself.
And one of my mods points out it makes it very difficult for the actual victims because now it's more difficult. And you know, she claims all this other stuff happened and traumatic stuff in her life. I never got into any of that. I never even talked about whether she was actually raped or not. There was obviously some huge stories about some issues with the reports and things of that nature.
Right.
In my opinion, it doesn't matter whether she got raped or not. It doesn't matter, right? Nobody gives a shit whether I believe she was raped or not. What I do believe is that, and I didn't know that I can prove, is that she has said false statements. That's it. those are objective. Whether something is true or not is, can be determined objectively.
Absolutely.
It's not a matter of, okay, like in your mind, were you raped or not? But she had made false statements. This is what's something that needs to be pointed out. This is, and again, why I'm suing her, because she's made false statements.
Well, she's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, eventually they have to understand too, if you lie enough like this, people are, I think people should, though. Honestly, I do think people should be cynical if people are like hesitant or if you don't like the word cynical, like reserved in how they, because look, I get people all the time who are like, Brittany, help me. I'm going to kill myself if you don't help me. Brittany, help me. Like, they're always emailing me. I'm like, hey, no. You cannot emotionally hold me hostage. Go get a fucking therapist. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, it is literally like emotional, what's that called when you blackmail someone? Blackmail. It's like emotional blackmail. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, if you don't help me, I tell people you don't help people because you say you want to help people. And I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up, bro. I want to help a lot of people. The narcissism in that brain to go, I should be helped over all other people is an issue within itself. Yeah. Like, that's an issue within itself.
I just had it recently happen. I have a friend of mine I've known for many, 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 many years. That I helped out just recently. I tried to help them out. They put on their Facebook that they were going to take their life that night. Me actually knowing this person extremely well, I did the only thing that I could do was just I notified her daughter and said, you know what? This is what your mom said. I don't know if she's manipulating people or not. I don't know if she's serious. And by the way, I do think there was a kernel of truthism there, right? I mean, I know this woman, if she really wanted to kill herself, she would, right?
Totally.
And so I was like, okay, I have to take this very seriously, even though, she's probably a cry for help. Exactly. But it's not my call. Not my call. But I cannot be her savior to try to talk her into this, because one, it's just not my position to do so, and I don't know all the details. But I let the person know that was closest to her, and she, did what she had to do. That's how you resolve those types of things, right? That's the appropriate course of action.
Yeah. Well, what else are you supposed to do? Also, these people must, like, that's the thing, is like, people have to know, but there's just like a lot of mental unwellness in the world too. And also we have like a sue culture. Even the other day, I helped somebody out and somebody was like, I can't believe you helped them out. Like, they could have sued you. And I was like, okay, we're not in California, but like, I understand what you're saying. If you save someone's life in certain states, they can sue you if you do it wrong. And so it's kind of one of those things where I think that's why they do that in China. I could be wrong, but I heard that they're not allowed to touch or help people in China because like they have one of those like responsibility cultures. I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
Well, most places have what's called Good Samaritan law. Most people have those, that you're immune.
But even in the States, there's been so many cases I've heard where people have gotten sued for helping people.
But they've caused the law to be changed in a few places. What is interesting though is there's no legal obligation to help somebody. They determined that, I think it was, I don't know what state it was, but there was somebody who was drowning and people just sat there and watched him drown. The courts ruled they had no legal obligation or onus to save the people. And I'm like, okay, besides the ethical onus, I understand why there's not a legal onus, because if the person's really in a situation where you're not trained, you're going to die yourself. People have gone to help other people and end up killing themselves. I get that. So I understand there's no legal obligation for it. But of ethical considerations, I'm going to help the person. If I get sued later, that's fine. I'm going to try to do what I can to help the person. That's how I am. That's how you are. And then we suffer the ramifications later. But I got to tell you, people have been pushed back on that for so much now that if you are one of those shit people that sue because somebody helped you and it was all, good intent, there's going to be backlash. And I think that you're seeing it a lot less nowadays than before.
True. Yeah, that's true. But even with the way insurance companies work, that's the problem, is that the setup is weird. Like, even stories you hear about, like, aunt and uncle sues their niece for medical insurance. It's like, yes, because of the way the system is, people have to do fucking stupid things in the court systems. So I think the issue is that we all think there's like easy solutions, but because so many of our like how we build our society from schools to everything else, going back to pronouns, is built on okay, I'll give you an example really fast. So like, I'm a queer person. I've hung out so long in queer circles, adult 18 plus queer circles, where like if you're at a gay club, bathrooms are often not gender segregated. So like you usually just share with boys and girls. So I've grown up in environments where I never even thought about how weird it was in my 20s to be peeing next to a guy. Like, I didn't even consider it. And even now, if the women's line is too long, I will sneak into the boys' bathroom and pee. Sorry, I'm not waiting.
I couldn't care less. Yeah, go for it. Do with your business, man.
Boys don't often care. Like, boys don't often care.
We don't care.
I've had, most of the time, I've had one boy be a little like insecure that he was gonna like take a shit next to a girl, and I was like, okay, I'll leave. I get it.
That's
like,
just weird to me. I couldn't care less who's scrapping next to me.
He's like a kid. He's embarrassed. But like, okay, listen to this though. I was at the airport recently. No, sorry, that's a lie. I was road tripping home, and I was at a Love's, like a gas station, Love's.
Oh yeah.
And I was there. And it was just all men. It was like 50 men and one female worker, and then the bathroom for the girls' bathroom was completely empty. And I had this paranoid feeling of like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Like, I thank God these bathrooms are segregated, but also like there's no one in this women's bathroom. And like, what if a guy just follows me in and like there's no one here to scream for help for me? And I was like panicking a little bit. And I was like, okay, Brittany, this is like, we're gonna think about it. What are we gonna do? So in those moments when it's like, no offense to straight culture, but like, yeah, when it was like straight people, I was thinking I don't want to be alone in a room with the men. But when I'm at a gay club with a bunch of gay guys, I feel not threatened because like, what are the chances a gay guy is going to rape me?
I completely understand that. That should be just a normative thing. I completely get that, right?
Right. But then people will, and I'm fine with like, look, none of those men hurt me. They were fine. Like the straights were fine. Yeah. Nobody hurt me.
Not every guy is going to go around and rape somebody. That again, I got in an issue with that same person I'm suing a long time ago. She was like, "Oh, Steve doesn't think there's a rape culture," and I'm like, "That's not what I said." I was trying to explain to her that a lot of women, put this stereotype that all men, all they want to do is rape as part of rape culture. And I'm like, that's not true. That is a falsity, and that's the stuff.
Yeah, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I was arguing against. And yet, when you have to remember though, when your whole audience, not yours, but when her whole audience is very emotionally led, they're very emotionally volatile, they're very emotionally low EQ, I would say, and because they believe her. And when there's been so many evidence that she's lied to people, she's got Reddits on her, she's got magazines posting things, calling her a tabloid journalist and all this other shit. It's established she's not a reputable person.
Crazy.
And by the way, I'm going to have a exclusive with you in a second here. I'll tell you something live that I have not mentioned yet on your show. Okay, in a second. But okay. I want to point out something before I do that. One, you use the term queer. I do not use that term. Why? Because in my generation, it was considered offensive, right? And so I have that choice. Do I want to use a term that I find to be offensive? Can somebody make me use that term because it's acceptable now? No, they cannot make me use that term, right? It doesn't mean that how is it offensive by me not using a term that I find personally offensive? Same thing by pronouns, right? You cannot force a person to use a specific term that you're not comfortable using. That doesn't mean you should misgender. It just means you cannot force somebody to use somebody. Again, queer is a perfect word for that. I won't use the word queer. I can't say have occasionally because again, I'm trying to like get used to it. But again, it just resonates odd with me. How am I the bad guy for that, right? Because to me, it's a pejorative. People ask me
not to use that word term. Yeah. No, you're right. Look, ultimately, this is all about. That's what I'm saying. I don't want anyone to feel forced. Like, I don't even want my mom to feel forced. I don't want anyone to feel, that's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, do we believe we're animals evolved over time on a planet? Then nothing we're doing matters except to the context of the situation. We can't really believe, because in order for our pronouns to matter, our words to matter, we have to believe we're special in some way. And I just refuse to believe that about myself. Like, I refuse on principle to think that I'm different than anyone else who's evolved over time. Like, right? Like, why is I just don't understand the logic. So, but there are ways in communities we can like, I don't mind having a default language. I don't care. Because if the miss or ma'am or him or his or these words matter or help society move forward faster, can I be honest? I say this all the time. Like, nobody cares about your gender. We just care about your sex. I think it's
we just care about your sex. How's your sex? Tell me about your sex.
We just care about that. That's all we care about. Because like, I don't know. I live with boys. Like, I live with my brothers. They are my brothers. They are boys. Like, it's very different than living with girls. I'm so aware because I grew up with 8 brothers. It's very different, people. It's different. Men and women are different.
I've lived with. Look, I've had roommates most of my life. In my house, I sublet out. I had I have men that live with me. I had women that live with me. I don't care. I mean, in the Navy, in the military, all you give a shit about is this person doing their job or not. You don't care if they're gay, straight. You don't care if they're female, male. You do not. I swear to you, the most. Everybody in the military, most of them at least, they don't fucking care. They just don't. All it was is somebody show up to relieve you on watch, right? Did somebody leave you the last, lobster tail or something? That's all you give a shit about.
But like at the same time, the military has a very high sexual assault rate, and like it has a drop. Like what I'm saying, people are pretty fucked up in the military.
No, here's the reality though. It really doesn't, comparatively speaking to other organizations, and it's usually off base. On board ship. On board ship.
Yes.
It doesn't happen at almost anywhere near where people think it happens, because on ship it's a completely different lifestyle. We had gay people on our ship. We nobody cared. Nobody talked about it because it was back in the whole don't tell, don't ask, don't tell. But we knew.
Good times.
Come on. Nobody really cared.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Steve, look at those solutions. How about don't ask, don't tell? And we're all like, yeah, that's a great idea. And everyone's like, sure.
That's a stopgap measure. Yeah, that's all that was.
Humans are so cute. That's what I'm saying. Like, we're all on this journey, and we think like we're gonna come up with all these solutions in 2022 because it's 2022. But there's so many things we still don't even understand. And like, I know people in the comments are like, rape culture is a myth. I see you, TJ. You're so dramatic. Men are so dramatic. Like,
they're more emotional than women, right? No.
Like, you're so emotional, but you've posted it multiple times. I see you. But like, you can't say something is a myth if in a bubble it exists. Like,
I don't think it's a
culture
myth.
exists.
I don't think it's a myth. I think it's
how people
blown, and I think there's a lot of things in rape culture that's not necessarily factual. But but that doesn't mean the patriarchal system doesn't exist. It's always been a systemic thing. I mean, come on, that's been thousands of years. That nobody can deny. Okay, come on, it's been male dominated.
Well, I think I think the people I think people just forget, like, they really don't understand how to take it outside of like also like what you're experiencing. Like, I had a person literally say on YouTube that like, oh, pride parades are being like, I'm afraid to go to pride parade because alt-right violence. And I'm like, conservative violence? I'm like, when? Who? Where? Like, you mean the anti-gay people who show up to pride? Yeah, that happens every year. That's normal. And then you yell at them and they yell at you and you guys are gross and you're both gross to each other. But like, people have ideas of what's happening in the world because we're all experiencing our bubbles. But like, rape culture, like, I've seen it in certain bubbles. I've seen it in certain men's conversations where I'm like, oh, that's rape culture. And then in other conversations, I'm like, that's not rape culture, but people will say it is.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Well spoken. I agree. It's not one size fits all. Let me ask you this, because I know we're coming up to the 2 hours. So and by the way, you know I could talk to you forever. We have. You don't even know how nice it is to talk to you sometimes compared to what I have to fucking deal with.
I love talking to you too. Same.
So let's do this real quick. One, my chat, my people love you to death. Right now, everybody who's listening that will listen or ever watch this video, go subscribe to Brittany. Let's get her over 100,000 so she can have a big event and, look down all this lesser, plebs of YouTube. So take 2 minutes right now. Let's cross-pollinate, cross streams. Go subscribe to her.
And get the link.
I guess, my view count's not that high any longer. I used to get, everywhere from 10,000, 20,000, 675,000 one, couple of videos. I've had videos over 500,000. Times have changed. If I get 1,000, 2,000, that's about normative for me. And I'm quite fine relegated to that level. It doesn't bother me. I don't do these things for so much other people. I do it because I enjoy it. And if people want to follow along, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
It is cathartic.
Love it.
Yeah, it's cathartic and I enjoy it. But if we can get 1,000 people from my channel to go subscribe to Brittany's, that would help her out. And if I can get, I figure 10%. So if she has like 112 people watching, so if 11 people, 10% is about the average. If 10 people come over and subscribe to my channel, NonSequitur Show, and my main channel, Steve McRae, want to go look it up, that's too.
And it's so nice because like Steve hosts all these debates and conversations. So for those looking for those things, that's definitely where you want to go to watch stuff. I mean, like I said, that's where I met Carl. That's how I even started off knowing you.
We got all the big players.
It's a great space. Oh, they have even Destiny has worked with Steve in the past. So like, we're all saying, it's so funny. We're all in the same, but we're not all in the same ecosystem. Like we all live on different parts of YouTube, but we overlap. And I think that's beautiful.
And by the way, my mod did put your link in. Yeah, I have everybody that's
and I put Steve's link too.
Pretty much most of my guests have wiki pages, right? I mean, I had not too long ago. If you watch So Supernatural, does your guest, does your subscribers?
I don't, but like they probably do.
All right, so the so-called Supernatural, it's a great show.
Yeah.
It's no longer on air, but one of the actors there is a friend of mine because he's a philosophy guy. His name is Mark Pellegrino. He plays Lucifer. He's been on the channel many times. I have conversations with him quite frequently. Really, really interesting guy. I don't agree with him so much politically and philosophically speaking, but we're able to, have a dialogue with each other.
You
right?
should. That's awesome. That's
it's
cool.
Weird. He'll tag me onto weird things on Twitter too. Be like, oh, he's like, Steve, this is right up your alley, and I'll do the same to him. Like, oh, you're talking about Mark. Mark would love this kind of stuff.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, and I have guests like that. I had the senior producer for the Howard Stern show on not too long ago. He's no longer with the Howard Stern show, but he was a great guest. So if people if people want to check out my channel and the interviews I have and the discussions we have, I think I might enjoy it. So yeah, cross-pollinate. Cross-pollinate.
Absolutely, and I put links for Steve's channel in the comment section. So that is me. There's a fake Brittany who shows up to my live streams now. That is the fake Brittany. It does not have a highlighted yellow name. I know, it makes me feel so loved. And their comments are pretty funny. But like my Brittany Simon is highlighted in yellow, guys. So it's me. The link is valid. I also don't allow other people to put links. except for my mods and me. So the link is to Steve's channel. Please subscribe. Please see him. Please say hi. It's definitely good energy. I mean, we've known each other. When was that conversation?
God.
Probably 2018?
Yeah, I think so.
2017?
17, 18, yeah. And,
something like that.
I swear, I don't really adore people very quickly. I don't. I took to you so much, and I was like, holy shit, I just happen to like this person. And then I find out she lives like 15 minutes away, and I was like, get the out. And I know.
Yeah. I know. I love that. Like those things. I think people meet for a reason, not to be so woo-woo, but I do think we were meant to cross paths for a reason, It's good.
I absolutely.
It's nice.
I don't know so much about the metaphysical, spiritual kind of, like people are meant to. But I got to tell you, having you in my life has been always a plus, and I think that what you do is amazing. I think that the conversations you have with your constituents, and you're one of those rare YouTubers that really, I know for a fact, do care about your subscribers. You give a shit. And I know for a fact that other YouTubers, they don't. There's lip service to fucking them. And I know it too. And I'm like, I was thinking to myself, you don't give a flying fuck about this person. You just want the sub or the Patreon. I've had people that are high level patrons. I told to fuck off because I wasn't going to do what they wanted me to do. And I'm like, I cannot be bought.
No, I can't be. No, I think certain people are just that way though. Like I was made to be that sort of like, that's what I'm saying. If I end up a small suburban YouTuber for the rest of my life, that's still awesome because I am only here for that one reason is that I just want to know people and I want to understand them. And even though, and I think this is something I got to say, I'm so open to people. I'm less open to some of your fucking crazy ideas, you bitches. I love you. But like, I'm very open to you as a person. Obviously, like people are my joy. Your ideas drive me nuts though. Some people got crazy ideas.
Yeah, your bubble is you got some interesting
humans for sure.
Yeah, I've listened to some of your stuff.
I love it. I do love it. I love like I said, like this little bubble on the internet is such a special place to me that I'm so honored being here. I just went home for Easter to see my folks, and legit the whole time I was like, I miss my Discord.
Well, you should have came down for Coachella Fest.
Oh, please. I'm so old. I can't do Coachella. I need to sleep. I'm so old. How do these adults show up to Coachella and all these things?
Dude,
I can't. I drove home the last day and I hit I can't. I'm so old. I can't.
I don't know how they do it. It's the mindset of these people where they'll spend, $5,000 to go watch some bands for a day or two. And they by the way, the housing here, the Motel 6, I priced it. How much do you think Motel 6 was for a night?
For Coachella?
For Coachella in India. I remember when Motel was like $40-$50.
Yeah. So I'm going to say regularly they're 70 and for Coachella they're 200.
Oh, dear sweet summer child. $780 a night. Yeah.
No.
I have the screenshot. I have the I'll put the screenshot on my
That's great.
I will find the screenshot right now and put it on my screen while I'm telling you about the one thing that I wanted to let you know that I told you I'd do on your stream.
Yeah, so, please tell me.
So, I'm not going to say the online magazine because waiting for it to come out. But there's a relatively popular online magazine. It's not like Forbes. I've been mentioned in Forbes twice, so it's not at that level.
Oh, look at you. But, yes. I think I saw that article, right? About your court case.
Yes. And it was funny. The tax guy from those stories, actually was a co-host on one of my episodes. Just recently. We became friends because he realized, hey, Steve wasn't the asshole in this. It was Kyle. Steve was telling the truth. Yes. And yeah, he and I had talked about talk stuff. I think he did kind of get things incorrect. He was willing to correct them. He edited his post. Yeah. And, and he's like, yeah, Steve, you didn't do anything tax-wise, bad. What you did was perfectly legal. He's like, I wouldn't have done that way, kind of stuff. Okay. But people are saying, well, I had some, tax problems. I'm like, no, I didn't. And here's a guy that was literally a tax guy for 20 years telling me, yeah, I did. And to prove it, he came on my show and was a co-host. So clearly he doesn't think that I did anything wrong. But anyway, so a magazine's out there that did an article on Katie Joy. They're going to do an article on me. They've already written it.
Are you excited? Are you nervous?
No, I mean, I've been mentioned before, but I mean,
You're excited.
I'm excited because my story is getting out. It's not very long. It's a short, limited to like 500, 600 words, but it will go out to the communities that most need to know about this person, about my story, my being Me Too'd, about me standing up for myself and saying, no, I'm not going to allow you to say these things about me. It is defamation. It is wrong. You are lying through your teeth. It's not even a matter of interpretation. Totally. It's not a matter of he said, she said. It is objectively, you're full of shit. And I'm going to hold you accountable for it. And so, yes, ma'am. I'm going to be. Yes, ma'am. I've already read it. I've already approved it. And there are some court cases that are coming up from other people that I have been asked to possibly be a witness of. That's another thing that I'm going to put on your channel.
You are in it.
I'm not going to say which court cases or whom, but people reach out to me. People have taken my situation somewhat seriously because I am a victim just as much as the people that are suing against this person. I lived it. I was I was at the forefront because this person didn't even have a channel until the Non-Sequitur Show. And so I've been doing things behind the scenes for quite some time to get people to recognize my story. Not so much because I want the attention. What I want is prevent this from happening to somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you have to make people known to the community if they're going to be that way. You know what I mean? You have to let them know, like, hey, like, she's this way, whether you like it or not, or she's sick or not, she's causing a lot of pain.
Yes.
She can't just go around doing that.
When you look, and she's trying to put in some kind of reporting. Look, you're not a reporter when you fabricate stuff. You're not a reporter when you embellish a story. That's a difference. You're not covering anything. Everything she says, she adds her own little opinion as fact. And that's not reporting. That's lying. That's gossiping. That's tabloid yellow journalism.
It's shameful. I'm so excited for you, though, to finally, like, are you putting this stuff to rest eventually? Do you think it will always be sort of like in the background, or like now that you have the Non-Sequitur Show back, that's a big deal.
And that's why I hadn't bothered with most stuff publicly, because I got my show back, and so that's what I've been focusing on. Now I'm going back to work, and I'm really focusing on real life stuff. And I'm not. I don't care what people think online as much, because who gives a shit? They're not affecting me in real life. I do this, show once a week or 2 weeks. I do my own shows on my own channel, Steve McRae. So I have that I do. But I do this because I want to, and people happen to want to watch. It's not that I have to do them. It's not that. It's just why nobody's been able to cancel me. What is there to cancel? I've never broken TOS. Yeah. I've never lost an account. I never say anything that's inappropriate that somehow can be,
That takes a lot, though, because it took me a long time to get to a place where I'm like, I don't think anyone could cancel me. Yeah. They could cancel me within their own belief systems. Like, they could say, within my belief system, I believe you're bad. And I could say, great. Within mine, I'm great. So they can't do nothing,
I'm great. I don't care what you think. I'm wonderful.
Yeah, according to my belief system, I might even be a saint. So, move over Mother Teresa.
I was going to say, let's call the church. See if you could be, what is it when you make a saint out of somebody? You're sanctified.
Canonized?
Canonized. Yeah, there you go. Canonized.
Canonized Saint Brittany.
Yeah, hashtag canonized Brittany. God is coming for £2 said, just sub to Brittany, but not in the BDS scene. Oh, no, sorry, not in the BDSM sense. Well, so he subbed to you, but not in the BDSM sense. But I know him, and he wouldn't be adverse to this. He wouldn't be adverse to that. Hey, Godless Scumber, if Brittany, I'm going to throw you to the wolves right now. If Brittany wanted to do a BDSM scene with you, would you be opposed to this, Godless Scumber? Be truthful.
Don't put him on the spot. Stop.
Hey, when you're my mod, when you're a mod, sub, or Patreon, or whatever of mine, you're up for grabs, man. It's just the way it is.
Stop, I'm dead. Oh, by the way, did you want to ask, like, are you just answering all your please answer your Q&As, your super chats, whatever you want to do for the end of this. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? I know we talked about it earlier.
Any of your people have any questions? My people are just enjoying this. My people.
I think same. I think same. If anyone has any questions, please ask. Let me check the Discord too. We have a live chat.
I'm still trying to find that screen grab that I got from Motel 6, because it blew me the frick away that it was $780 or $760, whatever it was, for a single night in Motel 6, all because of Coachella Fest. If that's not price gouging, what the hell is? Where did I put that screenshot? I put it on my Twitter. Oh, but if people want to follow me on Twitter, I'll put my Twitter on there. My Twitter's a cesspool, though. Don't expect much.
On your Twitter? I don't expect much from Twitter.
You don't have one any longer.
Nothing. I have one. I just don't really post anything. Yeah, I got a new one, and then I think it's just like the Bert Simon or something, because like Brittany's always taken.
Yeah, that's my Twitter if you want to join that.
My Discord says they're arguing about washing feet in general. Chat, love that for my Discord.
Wait, is this controversial now whether you should wash your feet or not?
Oh yeah, there's this whole, oh my gosh, have you never even heard of the racial components? There's a battle between white people and black people, and then foot washers and non-foot washers, and leg washers and non-leg washers. So black communities say they wash their legs, and white communities say they basically don't. They let the soap just trickle down. And then some people, I do a mixture of both.
Let me speak for us white people. No, that's not how it works. I'm speaking for all.
And as a Middle Eastern person, it depends. It depends, like how dirty my legs got. If I sat in Nafas all day, because I shower like every day. Well, see, sometimes I don't, depending on like how I feel about my calves, but then some days I will. It just depends on like how dirty I am.
Oh.
And that's the thing is like I also shower every day, which I guess is so weird to people, but like how do you not shower every day?
I can't say that every single day, but in the summertime, I one thing, if I leave the house, I have to shower. I have to shower, right?
Oh yeah.
And you know how hot it gets down here. So in the summertime, it's you take 2 or 3 showers a day sometimes. In the wintertime, not so much because it's just cold. I don't like cold. I don't like getting out of the shower to be cold.
Oh, I hate the cold.
So,
I hate it.
But as like my roommate knows, I have this weird thing. If I leave the house, I almost always have to take a shower first, just to even wake up or feel better.
Refreshes me.
Yeah,
I feel good. Even today, obviously, I came to this show with my hair wet. It's dry now, but like, yeah, I have to shower. Especially if I feel like I'm such a sweaty person. It's just genetics. I just feel like I'm gonna sweat and be gross, and I don't want to be sticky. Sometimes I even shower to work out because I want to be like.
Some people like that about you, maybe. I don't know. You know, hey, some people into that. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I got a nice musky smell, I guess. I try not to smell though. That's a problem. Stop it right now! I'm dead.
Hey, look! You smell like a woman, though. I mean, I
do. I try. I guess. You know? Is that a good thing that I smell like a woman? I think. I don't know. I think I smell pretty good. I don't. I am so afraid of smelling bad. I'm paranoid. And now that I had COVID, like back in October, my sense of smell comes in and out. Some days I have it, and some days I don't. And then I definitely feel like it's not as good. And I'm always paranoid I smell bad. I'm like, do I smell bad right now? Do I smell better right now? I know it's paranoia.
Yeah, first of all, I can't sniff you. There's a smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision? Not yet.
Yeah. Oh, can you imagine if OnlyFans had smell-o-vision? Whoa, what kind of thing?
Oh my gosh, that would be so in. Like people would just, it'd blow people's minds.
My chat's losing their minds. They're like, somebody's like, Zebulon says, there's people who don't wash their legs. I'm like, yeah, this is news to me too, dude. I did not know this. I'm learning something new here.
Yeah, like it just depends. And then not only that, but like I have one of those, like I have a washcloth and a loofah, washcloth for my face and loofah for my body. But even the loofahs, you're supposed to like exchange out every 2 to 3 months. So I'm looking for organic loofahs that I can find that last longer. But like even the way people like, yeah, like something that doesn't grow bacteria because of the moisture, because that's one of the problems with like cleaning tools in the showers. Like they grow a lot of bacteria.
Fungus.
So I've been thinking about that too. But yeah, I use like a washcloth for my face and exfoliate, but I stopped using soaps on my face a few years ago and it's completely cleared up my skin. But some people think that's crazy that I don't soap my face. But I'm like, they're like literally, I rarely like,
I don't use much soap on my face and because it dries.
Yeah, my face has I've suffered from really dry skin, so I'm really flaky. So the way I've noticed that it really changes everything. But I should grow a loofah. Do you know you can grow loofahs? I saw a whole video on this actually. Hey,
grow a loofah.
It was really cool. Yeah, because they're plants. Like they come from like a plant and they dry out, and then it's really insane. I don't think I could do it patience wise, but it's really cool. It's really cool. Now, okay, question. I don't have many questions on my side, and so it's just a matter of how you want to run the show. How long does your show normally go in
2 hours
in this time?
90 minutes, 2 hours. Really? Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So you're right there. I'm right there. I'm going to go a little longer, but I have to pee, and so I'm going to talk to my audience about what's coming up because I have a stream later tonight. So this isn't even my only stream tonight. I'm going to do it too, which I've never done. So it will be different. Evening, Brittany.
Well,
I'll have to not get high.
I'll tell you what, I will wrap it up with my audience. I will let you go on your end. I want to thank your audience. I'll probably drop into your Discord sometime, maybe later on tonight, just to kind of see what's going on. They were, like I said, they were very welcoming.
Awesome. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help promote you, and
ditto.
And one last super chat. Goddess coming for $2 says, "I'm a vegan BDSM sub. I'm biodegradable." And by the way, he pleaded the fifth on whether he was going to do a scene with you. He would, trust me, he would.
Stop. Don't. You're making me sound like I'd seen with everybody. I'm such a
prude. No, you're pretty exclusive. That's what I'm saying. If you offered because you're so exclusive, you better freaking take it up on it. Jesus Christ.
Right now, I'm dead. I'm dead.
Right.
It's true though.
Go do your thing.
This has been fantastic as always. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Awesome. Oh my God. I'm telling you, I'm like a kid talking to her. It feels like I'm just back in high school having a conversation with somebody that just, I'm not like, googly-eyed over, but it's just something that I'm enchanted by. She's definitely very, very enchanting. She's very lovely. She's very intelligent, very articulate. And I just enjoy our conversations. When we would sit there and have coffee together at the local coffee house, we would just sit there and talk for hours, and neither of us wanted to end the conversations, even though she lived close. It was just like we didn't get that much opportunity just because of our schedules to have these conversations, so it's nice. But anyways, like I said, go subscribe to her. If you guys got questions, please leave them in the comments. You know, this I was going to go over a little bit more about the pronoun stuff, but I think we covered most of the stuff that I really wanted to talk about. I think that most people recognize that, look, misgendering somebody is always wrong. It's unethical. It is something that just tries to harm the person. We shouldn't ever try to misgender. But when you try to force some standard genders on something, to try to force language on people, that's when you're going to have problems. People are used to he, she, and if you want to, have a different pronoun and be use a she because you're trans, absolutely. And even non-binary, they, them, I don't really have a problem with them. It's just very grammatically difficult for me. And I just use a person's first name. That's just a choice. That's all. If they or them become normative, where people get more used to it because these communities use them, then it will be more ingratiated in the English language. And in future generations, it'll just be second nature. That's fine. That's how language works, right? Nobody should give a shit about that if that's how it comes about. But it has to become about organically. When you start prescribing these things, when you start treating people they're bad people just because they don't use the exact same terminology you use, as far as the pronouns, you're not helping anybody. You're not helping the LGBTQ plus community. You're not making any gains and strides. What you're doing is you're just showing that you want to force things on other people. You want to force your opinions, and there's going to be pushback for that. And I think that is really what the conversations come down to be. Don't be a dick. Don't go out of your way to misgender somebody. But if you're not comfortable using these like non-binary pronouns, these, them, theirs, or that's fine. I'm not comfortable using them. They don't make much sense to me, as like Brittany says. But if you want to use them in your own communities and you all agree on that as a social construct, do it. Absolutely. Who cares? Nobody's going to care that you're using them. But my thing is, you cannot just bludgeon people that are not in your communities to use the same types of usages that you have. It's never going to work that way. And so I want to know what you guys think. I think this was a great show. I think this was what Non-Sequitur Show was originally designed to be about. Having conversations on this level, having conversations about these topics, and just engaging and getting people's opinions out there, a part that might be from your own. Now, granted, Brittany and I seem to agree on a lot of stuff. Some things we don't agree upon, but it doesn't matter whether we agree or disagree. It is that fact that we can have a conversation. And that's what I think Non Sequitur is about. And I want to thank you guys for being a part of that. Many of you guys have been around from the beginning. Obviously, there's going to be kerfluffles. Obviously, there's issues that are just, it's going to happen. Look, I cannot make everybody happy, and I'm not even going to try any longer. I told people a while back, I have to do what's best for me. I have to do what's best for what I think for the show, and I certainly have to be honest with myself. And when people are not being honest, I have to distance myself from them. I don't want to be around any of that. I don't think that those people should have. I don't think it should be taken seriously when obviously they have said things that are dishonest, and especially when one of them having to go sue. And Kyle was like that. Other people have been like that. And believe what you want. But I think that shows like this episode can demonstrate that it is about the conversation. And I want to thank Brittany very profoundly for being a part of that. She, always a great guest on the show. And I think maybe we might do something once a month. I'm serious about that. I think that it would be great. And I'm going to work that out with her where we can cross-pollinate and have these types of live things. I think, why not? I mean, she does them with Destiny. Not saying I'm like on Destiny's level, but I definitely think we could make that happen. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Thank you for all your super chats. Thank you for your subscriptions. Thank you for your memberships and your Patreon. It's been, obviously tough. Patreon has gone down because people, they didn't want to go the direction I was going, which was basically to do the show as originally intended. And by the way, no, I'm not going to have another co-host of any permanency. I'm not going to deal with that nonsense again. I'm never going to trust anybody again on that level, except for, again, Res Rhetoric, who is not a co-host, but he's the only person as far as involving the show that has 100% confidence and faith in me, and I have 100% confidence and faith in him. So other than that, never again. But I'm going to leave you guys with that. I'll leave you guys on a happy note. Thanks for watching. Bye.